What up, y'all? What up? Welcome to episode 58, Skids and Championships of the Sports Hour Plus with Miller and Watson. Once again, Morgan can't make it. She has some other things come up. So Trey is up in here for her, subbing in. Clarence Taylor the third. Nothing's wrong with Morgan. She just had a meeting and some other things going on. Y'all keep her in your prayers and your positive thoughts. Those of you that follow her on social media, you probably saw on her Facebook. She is 10 weeks away from her newborn child coming up and into the world. So definitely send some prayers and some positive thoughts her way as she enters the final 10 weeks of pregnancy.
Yeah.
Not that Trey and I know anything about that, but the final 10
I mean,
weeks.
a little bit. You got six siblings. You can learn a little bit about that.
Yes. I've only got one. Trey's over here batting 1,000, having a full 6 sets of siblings. But I only went through that once with my little brother. But yeah, so definitely keep her in your thoughts and prayers. As we are, like I said, Trey's here. Before I ask him how he's doing, we just want to continue to say that our
Yes.
prayers and thoughts continue to be with all the people dealing with those major wildfires in SoCal. Trey and I have a mutual friend that has not been affected, but he's in that area. He's doing well. I've got a couple of other friends who are doing well, who all live more in the city than in the burbs, but definitely sending prayers and thoughts and all of that to anyone going through. Hopefully we can provide a little bit of a distraction, stay safe. By now, most of y'all have probably evacuated if you don't live within city limits. But just in case, that's there too. So yeah, make sure y'all, if you're feeling generous, like I said, we don't have an official sponsor like GoFundMe or anything, but donate to the cause if you can. Whatever, help out, whatever your friends in SoCal, even just text them and check on them, tell them you love them because you never know. But yeah, so to do a little hard pivot there. Trey, how you doing?
I'm doing good. It's been probably a little. No, it was probably almost a month now since the last
Yeah,
podcast, or maybe a little bit less than a month.
since
So
since
good
the
to be back.
episode that none of them can hear us on.
Yeah. Had some technical difficulties. Your eyes are not deceiving you. It is green in my room right now. I have my light set to be green. Because I bleed green. Kylan bleeds green as well. So I was
I
just
do.
fooling around with the light beforehand, and I was like, let me change it to green. But yeah, other than that, I'm good. Been working on a feature film actually on the weekends for the last couple weekends. We'll be working on that up until the spring. I guess I'll shout out my Instagram is Mr. Taylor the Third. I'm on Twitter. It's my first name, Clarence Taylor. Just put those backwards, and that's my Twitter, or X as it's called now. And then my YouTube channel, Mr. Taylor Movies. I got a couple short films up there. You can check it out.
Let's go. Yes, Trey is back. Trey is back on the saddle in these films. Y'all know he's an aspiring filmmaker, occasional sports media person. When I call, Morgan call, and an accountant by day. So
Yes.
he's doing a lot. He wears many hats. Great guy.
Somebody said recently to me, I told him I was an accountant, and they said, "You're kind of like Batman, accountant by day, filmmaker by night."
Facts. All right, but yes, we are getting into definitely. I'm well as well. For those of you that have been following me on Twitter, Trey knows this. He's not the only one. Got really active last week with the snow and everything that was here. Writing articles for the Philly Trib, really starting my new year off, getting active with the Trib on what's going on. MLK weekend, and then warming setters that were happening last week. I think they're still going on because I think we're about to get a Russian cold spell in a minute. I'm not a forecaster, but from what I understand from the Philly meteorologists, we're about to get a Russian cold front coming in just in time for the ironically, with the inauguration being Monday, it's probably going to be the coldest day of the 3-day weekend. So for those of you that believe in that, it's that. Like Trey said, he is on Instagram, Mr. Taylor the Third. I am at Colin W. Watson. Morgan is at M_India_Miller. And she's in the midst of obviously football playoffs and everything else. So speaking of that, we can't start. We started last week with the coaching stuff, and now we got some updates. most recent coach added to the unemployment line, or in his case, the free agent line, because the Cowboys are weird. The Dallas Cowboys do not renew Mike McCarthy's contract. Our reaction to this, I can start here. Crazy because, like, the Cowboys were trying to have their cake and needed to, right? They blocked the Chicago Bears from talking to Mike McCarthy, and then like a week later after doing that, then you get this weird update from Adam Schefter. Some of us were reading between the leaves. I remember Trey and I, Morgan and I, a bunch of us on this show have had major discussions about, is Mike McCarthy's job safe? Y'all probably have heard me say I don't think his job is safe. His job is only safe because Jerry Jones is a stupid GM. No, that's just
pretty
what he
much.
is. Like so. Kind of, push came to shove, and Mike McCarthy said no. The Cowboys said no. They didn't renew his contract, and now Mike McCarthy's a free agent. One of the few times when you have a free agent coach that wasn't fired. So I just think it's crazy on the Cowboys front, because it's like, who are y'all expecting to get? We'll get into this in a minute once I let Trey go. Maybe it'll be prime time in Dallas. How ironic would that be? But we'll see. For a hint to where I'm teasing, where I'm going, so who's the next coach going to be. And I have no sources on that. I want y'all to understand this. I'm not just saying this emptily. I have no sourcing. I'll be honest with you. If I have sourcing on it, I'll tell y'all, but I don't have any sourcing on this. This is just an educated guess for the next topic. But yeah, the Cowboys, it's unfortunate if you're an NFC East team, because you always had inadequate coaching. Like, you had two teams with great coaching, two teams with inadequate coaching, and now we wait to see what's going to go on with the Cowboys. But I mean, good for Jerry Jones for finally
Yeah.
making the move, and not keeping Mike McCarthy's with the will he, won't he. So we'll see, and we'll see what the next yes man coming in is going to be for Jerry Jones. But I mean, if you're a Cowboys fan and you thought Mike McCarthy was the problem, I'm sure you're happy right now. Trey?
Yeah. So to me, it's a strange. The Cowboys. We talked about this. I think now not the last podcast we did, but 2 podcasts ago, we talked about the Cowboys and the whole CD Lamb and Dak Prescott situation, and whose contract, and that whole situation. And then that ended up getting worked out maybe a week after we had that conversation. So the Cowboys have been in a weird state of flux all season. I think they're something like, what are they, 5 and the end of the season, 5-12 or something like that, I think, or maybe
5-12, 5-13, something like
so
that.
so you look at the situation and you say, what's going on? Obviously Dak is injured. But it's odd, like Kylan mentioned, that 1 minute he's good, and then the next second he's not. Which, I mean, is the case for all jobs. Those who are 9-to-5ers, and you live in a right to work state, they can also fire you just as easily as you could quit. So, strange situation. I don't know who, we'll talk about that next, who might be the new coach. But I don't know. I don't know that I'm confident, and Kylan would probably agree with me on this, is that I don't know necessarily if coaching was quite the issue here necessarily. Like, maybe part of it was, but there's a whole lot more going on behind the scenes. And then injuries and stuff like that going on that were impacting the Cowboys this year, and the cause for their, I think, first like losing season in what I think 6 or 7 years now. So, it's one of those things where you're kind of like, and Cowboys fans are probably cheering. Honestly, it's always different as a fan, versus being a non-fan looking at these type of situations. But yeah.
Yeah, facts. Moving right along. Who should be the next coach? I mean, I'll close that one out by saying, yeah, I think I've said it. I think the problem is not the talent. The problem is Jerry Jones will not get an actual football mind as the GM. He won't fire himself, and he needs to. I think that's
Yeah.
the problem. So who should be the next coach for the Cowboys? I think it's kind of, the betting, if you're a bettor, a lot of people say it's going to be Kellen Moore. I'm going to tell you, just because he likes the flash, it is definitely probably more than likely going to be Deion Sanders. I mean, we are already hearing essentially from different insiders, depending on who you follow, that all Deion is basically just waiting for Jerry Jones to offer him the job. And so, ladies and gentlemen, and Cowboys fans of all ages, I think the future coach of the Dallas Cowboys will be Deion Primetime Sanders. He's going to leave Colorado in the lurch, like I have always said since he got there. He's done a great job. Trey has always heard me say that. A lot of people want to argue me down about it because they actually believe what these coaches actually say. And what do I always say, Trey? These college coaches and these professional coaches, they are professional liars. They are trained to tell you exactly what they want to hear. Some of it is the truth. I am not going to besmirch all coaches. Some of these coaches are telling you the truth, and the truth is only as good as it is until they talk to their GM, to their bosses. So,
Yeah.
I am of the mindset that Deion Sanders will probably be the next coach of the Dallas Cowboys. It'll be Deion, Dak Prescott, up until the Cowboys. I don't think will have a top 5 pick, so I don't think they'll be in the Shador sweepstakes. But wouldn't surprise me if somehow, some way later on in his career he winds up with the Cowboys. But I think it's going to be Deion. And if it's not Deion, I think it'll end up some kind of way. It'll be the Deion. I don't think it will end up being Kellen Moore, just because I think that all signs are pointing to it, and I think Jerry Jones will not make a smart decision, so he'll go with the flashy hire. And I think that'll end up being Deion. And I think that Kellen Moore is ready. I have said that I think he's the coach in waiting in Philadelphia, for when or if, whichever one comes first, Nick Sirianni messes up and messes the team up. I've said that on this podcast before. I said it in my articles. I don't think he came to Philadelphia without an assurance that he's the top choice if something go wrong with Nick Sirianni. So I think Kellen Moore would be the smart decision, but I don't think that's going to happen. I think it'll either be Deion Sanders or Ben from the Lions. I think he's a good person for that job too. But I think it'll wind up being Deion, just because Jerry Jones loves flashy hires that won't do anything for him. And I think the perfect kind of coach for what Jerry Jones wants right now, which is somebody who can get you there and then fail. It'll be that it's definitely Deion. Like, bring all the flash, bring everything. And I'm not besmirching Deion's coaching abilities. Obviously, he got Colorado to a bowl game, which is something that didn't happen last season, and then got beat by BYU. So I'm of the mindset that that's the kind of coach that's gonna. Cowboys fans may hate me for saying it, because you probably want one of the Lions offensive coordinators. You want Kellen Moore. I think both of those, or any of those 3 guys, would be great for Dallas and would make perfect football sense for you. But when you think about the Cowboys job, you got to think of somebody who will do everything Jerry Jones wants him to do, and will kind of stand up to him, but not really. And that's I'm not besmirching Deion as a man or Deion as a person. I just think it's a perfect kind of like flashy, not going to go too far, but go just far enough to get you excited. Yeah. Deion Sanders is the future coach of the Dallas Cowboys. Trey?
Yeah, I think it's very likely that it's between the two, Kellen Moore and obviously Kellen Moore has a track record with the Cowboys, having been their offensive coordinator, and I believe also played was it 1 or 2 seasons with the
Yeah, he
Cowboys.
was Dak's backup.
Dak's backup, right? But I think I agree with you actually. I think it's less to me about even being flashy. I think it is the flashy choice to choose Deion. I think even more so though, I think he could succeed in that he's a guy who we have seen and we know is a great people person, right? He's a player's coach, but he also puts his foot down. For those who weren't paying attention, if you saw, Deion Sanders recently made some new rules for the football players, as far as like when they, what time they got to be at practice and team meetings and all this type of stuff. So I think Dion could actually have more success than any coach that has been in Dallas in the last 20 years, perhaps, because I think that despite the fact that I'm sure he's pretty good, he has a pretty good relationship, probably friendship with Jerry. I think he actually is going to potentially stand up more to Jerry than prior coaches have, um, while also maintaining that relationship that they already have. And as a result, I think the players will see that. I think respond accordingly. At the end of the day, though, I don't think this completely solves the Cowboys' issues that we just mentioned about the fact that Jerry is playing GM, and we know he's never going to sell the team because he wants to keep it in the family. So it's a situation where you say, what's the smart football choice might be, like Kylan mentioned, a guy like Kellen Moore from the Eagles, or um, you take it from, there's always, whoever the best has the best offense in the league, that offensive coordinator typically is, due for some head coaching interviews. But I do agree with you that it's between Dion and Kellen Moore because of their connections to the team. And I think there's pluses and minuses to both. Uh, as we've seen with Kellen Moore um, as our offensive coordinator, Dak and I think Jalen, we can agree, is the better quarterback, but Dak and Jalen are very similar in terms of play style. Although Jalen is definitely the more mobile quarterback. So I don't know. We'll see what actually happens. We could both be wrong, and it's neither Dion or Kellen, and Jerry surprises us and makes a smart decision and hires somebody like the Lions offensive coordinator or something like that. But we shall see.
Yeah, we definitely will. We definitely will. All right, well, moving right along in the coaching search things. The New England Patriots, the worst kept secret in football. New England Patriots hired Mike Vrabel to be their next head coach. And our reaction to this, Trey, I'm gonna let you go first here.
Yeah, this is I'm not surprised. He's a former Patriot, a defensive guy. I believe coached was it 1 or 2 seasons that he was with the Titans? I can't remember. But he's a guy that people like. Speaking of people, player type coaches, Mike Vrabel is a guy that people are going to like being having in the locker room.
Wasn't it like 4 years, 3 or 4 years?
Was it? Maybe I don't remember. Maybe it was 3 or 4 seasons. Because the Titans had a stretch where they were pretty good.
I'll check. Hold on.
But it makes sense. Like, I'm not surprised that they hired Mike Vrabel. I immediately saw it was a fake report or somebody just speaking out their behind, said something along the lines about AJ Brown going to the Patriots, because I was like, what? He just signed a contract extension. The Eagles are Super Bowl contenders. In what world would AJ leave to go play with the Patriots, who have really no quarterback, just to go play with a defensive head coach? That doesn't make any sense. So
4 years. 4 years.
I'm not shocked. It makes sense. And I think we'll see. I think he's a good defensive coach, and obviously he lacks in terms of what he can do offensively. But maybe he can get Drake May to grow under him, and we'll see where that goes.
Yeah, I'm of the mindset that I like I said to open this up, was the worst kept secret in football. It's unfortunate that Gerard Mayo had to be sacrificed for Mike Vrabel to get another chance. I just think that, again, this is Bob Kraft searching for a solution to a team with very, very deep issues. I think that a lot of times arrogance breeds stupidity. And so I think that Mike Vrabel is a good coach, obviously, but I also think he's a coach for you if you're about to make a Super Bowl. And I think the Patriots, and I think their fans will admit this, are far away from that. He is not the developmental type coach. He is a coach that can take your middling quarterback and make them, like he did with the Titans quarterback at the time,
Ryan
right?
Tannehill.
Yeah, like he did with Ryan Tannehill. Obviously, AJ Brown was a finished product, and so was Derrick Henry. So like he did with that, he can take your bunch of middling, scrubby players and make your team a playoff team. But that's not the Patriots' problem. The Patriots' problem is you have Drake May, Anthony Gonzalez, and a bunch of like young studs, right? And you're trying to get to the next level in the very loaded AFC East. And that's not Mike Vrabel, right? Mike Vrabel is not the developmental coach. And that's the problem, right? Bob Kraft wants immediate success when he's basically in. I know this is becoming a dirty word because of how the Sixers are playing right now, but they're basically in their process days. They are processing, like they are building a contender, and you can't rush that. And I think Bob Kraft is trying to rush that, right? Him and Jerry Jones have the same problem. They're trying to rush success. Obviously, Jerry Jones is at the different problem. Jerry Jones's team is doing this, whereas the Patriots are already basically at rock bottom, right? And they're trying to get it out the mud. And they're probably like the Patriots are probably 4 to 8 years away from contending again, right? And that's being generous, right? Like they are 4 to 8 years away from contention. Like they will probably be in contention when Josh Allen and Haley Steinfeld probably have some kids and he's on his way out of the league. That is when they're going to start contending again, right? 4 to 8 years from now, right? So I am of the mindset that that right now the AFC East is just too loaded, right? If it's not the Bills, I know a lot of people. The Dolphins are about to implode, but they're still a good team. So whether they don't have Tyreek there, so whether they're about to lose Tyreek Hill, they still have their other receiver. They still have Tua. All Miami's really missing is a quarterback who can take advantage of their weapons. I think that might be Tua. He just got to stay away from the concussions, but we'll see. Right? There's too many weapons there. The Jets are a mess, and the Patriots are a mess. But other than that, like, and then you look at the AFC as a whole, like Baltimore isn't going anywhere. Pittsburgh is a quarterback away. We'll get to Pittsburgh in a minute. Kansas City isn't going anywhere. Seems like Patrick Mahomes is on the Steph Curry track, right? Every time he gets a ring, a baby comes out. So like it's time. It's kind of like that. So I'm just of the mindset that Mike Vrabel this kind of gets into the next question. But right now, I think that's great for Mike Bravel that he has his chance to coach again. But I just think that it's not going to work out for them because of where they are right now, and where they are is um, a middling team trying to be a contender when they should just be trying to understand that they're processing, and that's where they are. Um, So yeah, so I kind of answered, the next question of, oops, for where are the New England Patriots headed as a franchise? They are in the middle. They're bottom dwellers trying to get to the middle or to the top, and I don't think that's like where they're going right now. My brother's in here trying to cameo in the back of me. That's why Trey's laughing. But but yeah. So Christopher's in the back. Say hi, boy. Say hi. But yeah, they're trying to you never know in this house. They're trying, they're a middling team trying to get it out the mud, and I don't think Mike Vrabel is a coach for that. But that's where they're headed. They're in the mud trying to get out of it, and right now all they're headed for is another top 10 pick because the talent just is not there, and I don't think Mike Vrabel will be able to turn that around. You know, they had Gerard Mayo and won one extra game. So, I think Mike Vrabel is probably worth maybe a 500 record. And for the Patriots, that's improvement. But that Mike Vrabel is maybe worth 5 or 6 more games. But I mean, y'all, if you're a Patriots fan, you're still headed to that next couple of years. You're a top 10 pick, and you had a good run, right? You kept getting rings. You had Tom Brady. Yeah. Boston fans and New England fans are very spoiled. But right now, as far as the football team, there are no rings coming anytime soon to the Patriots. Trey?
Yeah. The Patriots are far out from being contenders. They had a little bit of a tiny run towards the end of the season, won a few games. But I don't think Drake May is the answer at quarterback. Maybe maybe he shocks us and develops late or something like that later in his career. But the Patriots are in a situation where it's almost like championship hangover times 50, right? Because you had such a great run with Tom Brady and Bill Belichick that it's like you've got this extended hangover now that's happening with the Patriots, and they haven't been able to get out of the funk. And they've gone through, I think now this Mike Vrabel will be the third head coach. I could be wrong there. But it's one of those situations where they have to weather the storm, draft well, and hope that the players that they draft turn out, to be top tier players. That's really all they can do. The NFL is not really a tanking league, and the NBA has kind of shifted that out of that as well, for the most part. But yeah, they're I think they are in a position where kind of similar to where the Thunder were not too long ago, where the Thunder weren't very good, but they drafted really, really well. They made smart trades, got a lot of draft picks, they picked up a lot of, top tier talent through trades, um, i.e., their starting player, Shea Gilgis Alexander, who was in the trade. And obviously, I'm talking about different sports, but I think they're in that kind of, the Patriots are in that space where they just have to, as much as possible, acquire draft capital, make smart picks in the draft, maybe swing on a couple picks, and hopefully they make on those swings, as far as taking risks on players and stuff like that. And I think if they do that well, then they're good. The problem is hiring somebody like Mike Vrabel with the talent that they do have. I think they're still a middle of the pack team, right? They're not going to make the playoffs, but they might give you 4 or 5 wins, and that's only going to give you like a 16, 17, 18-ish pick. You're going to be in that middle range in the draft. And not that you can't get great talent in the NFL draft and those numbers. You're not in that upper tier, from 1 to 14, 1 to 13-ish range. So they're kind of in a tough spot. But I do still think if they draft well and they kind of weather the storm, and 4, 5, 6 years, the Patriots will be in a much better spot. The question, though, then when you get to that point is, has Drake May developed into the quarterback that you want him to be, or are you in a situation where you're drafting somebody else in the next 2 years and hoping that they develop and turn out? But yeah.
Yeah, facts, very much facts. But moving from one team, two dead teams to a couple playoff teams. The Pittsburgh Steelers fell to the Baltimore Ravens, and our reaction to this. Trey, I don't know if you watched this game or not. What did you think? What's going on in your head about
I
this?
caught a few of the highlights. The Steelers, and we'll kind of get into this a little bit more and their future. But I'm not quite shocked. I mean, you got a guy in Lamar Jackson who's been probably the best player in the league for the entire season overall. And it's a division rivalry game, always going to be a tough game. I think it was clear the Ravens are they're the better team. They got a very good run game, great pass game. The Steelers were a strong team all year for the most part. Got a veteran in Russell Wilson, and the defense has played fairly well all season, but it just wasn't enough, And again, we'll get in more into their future, but I'm not shocked. I anticipated that the Ravens would win this game because they are the better team. They have the better quarterback. They have the better running back. Shocker, for some to say, oh, because Russell Wilson kind of is one of the quarterbacks who kind of paved the way for Lamar to even do what he does. But yes, Lamar Jackson is better than Russell Wilson at this point in his career. So my question though going forward is now what will the Ravens do in the playoffs? Because up until now we've questioned many have questioned Lamar's playoff acumen. Can he take the Ravens to the big game? So I think to me that's the story of this playoff of these playoffs for the Ravens. What happened? Where do they go? Do they falter in game 2 of the playoffs, or do they continue on and make it to the NFC or AFC Championship game rather, and do some big things? And I think maybe that this team is a little bit different. They have a much stronger running game, and Lamar has just we haven't seen a quarterback play like this in a very long time. I think the last time we saw somebody play with this much efficiency with such a low turnover rate, probably going back to Aaron Rodgers in what was that, 2014 or 15, when he put up like 45 and 6. So we shall see with the Ravens, and I'm hoping, I have hopes that the Ravens could do some big things, and maybe given the Chiefs' struggles this year, can get past the Chiefs and actually get to the Super Bowl. I think that would be an awesome matchup too. I do believe on the other side of the aisle in the NFC, the Eagles are going. So Lamar Jackson, Jalen Hurts Super Bowl would be a good matchup.
Rematch of like
Yes,
3
a
or 4 weeks
rematch.
ago.
Yep.
Yeah, as far as this goes, I'm not surprised. Pittsburgh was kind of very reminiscent of what happened to the Eagles last year, where they just kind of ran out of gas. And as good as Russell Wilson is, he can't account for all the stuff, all the dysfunction or whatever that was going on in Pittsburgh. Najee Harris kind of admitted that some of the noise from the media got into the locker room. He admitted that earlier this week. So it was kind of reminiscent of what happened with the Eagles in Tampa Bay, right? Now, I'm not going to call the Ravens the Buccaneers of last year where they're about to be one and done. But I kind of think that, the Ravens just were the beneficiaries of Pittsburgh's dysfunction. And I think Russell Wilson's a good quarterback. I've said on this podcast before, I think that he's the perfect quarterback for Pittsburgh right now, a bridge quarterback that can keep them in contention for the next 2 to 3 years, and excuse me. I just think that, as far as they just came up, this is just what happens when you run up into a juggernaut, right? Like they just played each other a week or two ago, and the Ravens got to lick their lips, stay home, and just destroy them and take full advantage of Pittsburgh's dysfunction. The fact that, like Trey said, they had Derrick Henry, and the Steelers had nobody who could stop Derrick Henry within that stadium on Saturday. I kind of turned this game off once they didn't convert on that fourth down, I kind of knew it was over. Pittsburgh showed signs of life in the second half, but that game was won in the first quarter where Baltimore basically said, "Yeah, we're gonna end your season in the first 15 minutes," and that's exactly what they did. Baltimore, has a different kind of like with the Eagles, right? They have a different dynamic now because they actually have that difference maker, even though they don't have Zay Flowers. Derrick Henry is that difference maker, kind of like for the same thing with the Eagles, right? Even though they have AJ Brown, they have Devontae Smith, they have Dallas Goedert, like you have a difference making running back now who you have faith in can break one and no one can stop him, and that's the same thing the Ravens have. And that's just a won the day, right? Because Lamar was winning it with his arm. Didn't have Zay Flowers out there. A lot of people were concerned about that, but I'm like, as long as he's got as long as he's got Mark Andrews, he's good. Like he's been tearing people up with just Mark Andrews out there. So, I knew somebody would be open because they would be triple or quadruple teaming Andrews. It turned out to be Rashad Bateman. So I mean, it's not unheard of, man. Lamar is in his I'm showing y'all I'm a quarterback era. And he's definitely that guy. And like I said, there were a lot of teams when he was a free agent and basically looking for a team a couple of summers ago. Like San Francisco should have gave him a call. Pittsburgh should have gave him a call. Like now he's showing y'all. And I'm of the mindset that, you know, Baltimore, I don't really think that there's a team. I mean, we're about to see in Buffalo, but Baltimore's used to that element. They're not going to be at a disadvantage. I this game coming up might be too close to call, but I just think for the Steelers, they had a lot of dysfunction towards the end. They kind of ran out of gas. They kind of have to build a team now for the future. For right now, that can contend and also build for the future. It's going to be difficult. We'll see what happens with the quarterback. Will they keep George Pickens? Will they draft somebody else who'll be less of a problem? I don't really know. But we'll see. And that's not a Mike Tomlin problem. That's not a Russell Wilson problem. That is a Pittsburgh GM Rooney's problem, So we'll see. But moving right along to the next part of this question. Should Mike Tomlin be fired or should Pittsburgh continue to keep him there? I mean, again, like I always think it's problematic that every time a coach loses, it's immediately their fault. Like Mike Tomlin doesn't build Pittsburgh's roster. He doesn't put the players together. He's never had a losing season in his life since he's been coaching them. I think honestly he should keep his job. I think until the team shows that they are not listening to him, until he shows that he cannot keep his team in line, then you get rid of him, right? Like a lot of people have been using the Andy Reid example, and Andy Reid lost that team, right? Andy Reid, people got tired of Andy Reid. No one has gotten tired yet of Mike Tomlin. And so, I think again, this is more of a Pittsburgh GM roster construction problem than it is a Mike Tomlin problem. I think that a lot of this is Mike Tomlin is doing the best he can, but he doesn't really have those difference makers. He doesn't have a Saquon Barkley on his roster. He doesn't have a Derrick Henry on his roster. Doesn't have an AJ Brown on his roster. George Pickens is great, but he's not that, right? So like I'm of the mindset that is what they need. They need some difference makers. Like they got TJ Watt, he's a difference maker. They've got George Pickens, but what else do you have, right? You need a couple more difference makers, a couple more weapons. You need a Russell Wilson or somebody who can fundamentally change your offense. Now, is that Russell Wilson? Is that Sam Darnold? I feel like it's Russell Wilson more than it is Sam Darnold. Is it Kirk Cousins? Like, can Kirk Cousins come in there and get them farther in the playoffs? Probably not. Like, I feel like, Russell Wilson is probably the best thing going for Pittsburgh right now. So, like I said, to me, I think Pittsburgh needs to keep Mike Tomlin around until the team shows you that they're not listening to him anymore. And to me, again, it's more of a roster construction problem than it is a Mike Tomlin problem. They just don't have the difference makers or the weapons to really go back to a Super Bowl. When Pittsburgh went to those Super Bowls, they had Ben Roethlisberger, they had Hans Ward, they had Jerome Bettis. Like they had weapons. They had Santonio Holmes. They had all these different things. They had the tight end. They had Heath Miller. Like they had, multiple things on defense. They had difference makers, right? That's they don't have that right now. That's the problem. The roster construction isn't adding up to the talent that Mike Tomlin is, and I think it's been disrespectful since their season ended on Saturday night. That on X, it's been trending that he needs to be fired. He's the Black Andy Reid. And that's not the case. Like Mike Tomlin is a great coach, and he's been let down by his GM and the roster that the GM and the scouting department has put together. Trey?
Yeah, I completely agree with you. So I think to me there's two kind of coins of this, right? Mike Tomlin is one of the winningest coaches in NFL history. He's never had a losing season with the Steelers. And Kylan is correct when he says that Mike Tomlin, I'm sure he has influence, but does not actually have control over the personnel of the Steelers. And so on that hand, you can't always blame the coach, right? I think the Steelers have a decent amount of talent. They have a good, you got a good quarterback. Najee Harris is a good running back. You've got a solid receiving core. Could have been better had they gotten blanking on his name from the 49ers this offseason in the trade. But I think he coached well all season. The Steelers were not a team that you could just play around with at all this season. But on the other hand, you ask yourself, right? Looking at and I'm going to call back to an old, also in the same division coach, um, from the Bengals. I'm blanking on his name, but similar situation. Although he had many losing seasons, uh, you kind of say, okay, you've been here for this long time, right? Have not done anything really in the playoffs in a very long time. I think the last time the Steelers were even considered to be Super Bowl contenders was the last time they went to the Super Bowl against, I guess, the Packers, and that's been what, that's over a decade. So you look at it and you say, well, okay, Mike Tomlin is winning us games, and we've been plus 500, either at 500 or plus 500 for his entire career. But if I'm the GM, if I'm whoever's in charge of hiring hiring a head coach, I have to ask myself this question: Is Mike Tomlin part of the problem? Um, and I don't know the answer to that question, but I would venture to say that maybe he is part of it. I think he's a phenomenal head coach, but I think it. I think I just kind of disagree with you, Colin, that this might be sort of an Andy Reid situation. It's slightly different, where maybe a change of scenery, does some good for him. I don't know that he wants to go anywhere else. I don't think he does. But it could be one of those situations where you say it's not that he's a bad head coach, like it, because I think there's two scenarios where you fire a head coach, really, like speaking generally. Like you go, okay, you got a head coach who is not doing a good job, right? And then you got a situation where you got somebody like an Andy Reid, a Mike Tomlin, who were good head coaches, but their time had just run out with that team. Um, and so a change of scenery might be the best thing. So maybe firing is not the right word, but I think I would, if I'm the GM, I'm heavily considering saying, "Hey, Mike, you've done great things for us. You've won us a Super Bowl, and you've taken us to two Super Bowls. I think two were Super Bowls. I could be wrong there. Um, but it's time to move on. We wish you the best elsewhere. And it's more of a mutual leaving as opposed to a firing. I would not be surprised if that happens this offseason.
Yeah, I think that could happen, but I'm of the mindset that it's a different situation just because, again, you haven't seen that they're tuning him out. And I think that that happened with Andy Reid. Obviously, he went 4-12, so there was a reason to fire him, and there's no reason to fire Mike Tomlin as of yet. I mean, if you want to do a Mike McCarthy situation, just let the contract run out, and so be it. But I just think that kind of like obviously the Eagles don't regret it because they got a Super Bowl, but it takes you a long time to find a coach. So I just think that, for anybody wishing that they fire Mike Tomlin, I think you need to be careful what you wish for because there ain't too many coaches that can say they've never had a losing season in their career. So I think it's more of a roster construction problem, and that's not Mike Tomlin. I think that there are certain times when it's not the coach, it's the GM and the people that put the roster together. And I'm of the mindset that that's where that is, and that you can be a great coach, but if you don't have the difference makers, and you're in a division with Joe Burrow and Lamar Jackson, that you kind of need some difference makers outside of T.J. Watt and Najee Harris. You need a difference maker, and I don't think. And like I said, I don't think it was until they got Russell Wilson that they really had a quarterback that actually scares you. Like no disrespect to Kenny Pickett, but he does not put the fear of God in you like Russell Wilson does. Even Russell Wilson, as old as he is getting, he still puts the fear of God in you because when he's throwing that deep ball, as the Ravens found out, all it takes is a couple connections, and so that's what I think. I think it's a lack of difference makers. It is not Mike Tomlin. But moving right along to what's going on this week. Baltimore Ravens versus the Buffalo Bills, a preview and predictions. So I think this game is going to be a quarterback battle. I think it's going to be a real offensive battle. I think it's going to come down to who's running back. Who's running back dictates the game more. I think if it's Derrick Henry versus James Cook, you're going to take Derrick Henry. And I just think that the Ravens defense is a little bit better than the Bills defense. You kind of saw it. I didn't think the Bills would struggle with the Broncos, but they did. That defense, I think, is a problem. And if Bo Nix is carving you up like he was doing, then what are you going to do against Lamar Jackson without Zay Flowers, right? And so I think that a concerning thing for the Bills is, Bo Nix, without much running back help, was able to carve you up. So what is Lamar Jackson going to do to you? I'm of the mindset that this is going to be a shootout, and I think it's going to come down to which running back controls the clock more. And I think it'll wind up being Derrick Henry, and I want to say that Josh Allen will be good enough to overcome, the struggles that his defense, the hole that his defense will put him in, and that him and James Cook can overcome it and tight end you. But I just don't think so. I think the Ravens are going to be able to make a statement, get that statement playoff victory, and get that rematch that they want with the Chiefs in the AFC Championship game. And I think that Josh Allen will fight admirably, but I just think I think it's 30-24. I think Ravens. I think it's a shootout, even though it'll probably be like it always at the Buffalo, snowing, raining, the elements will be against them. But I think, like I said, they're from Baltimore, and the one thing that we know about Baltimore teams is they fight, they're tough, and they won't be punked. And I think that I think the Ravens are, if there's one team that can go up in there and punk you in your own building, it is definitely the Baltimore Ravens. The Baltimore Ravens, they have the Wire energy. And if this is the first time you're hearing about the Wire, pause this podcast and go watch it. I am of the mindset that they have that energy that they will come up and punk you in their own building. So I think 30-24. I think it'll be a close game, but I think the Ravens defense wins out, and the Buffalo Bills defense can't stop Lamar and Derrick Henry. They just don't have those difference makers like the Ravens do on offense. Like I said, 30-24, that's my prediction. Ravens move on. I think the Bills fall. I think this is the end of the road to get on my boys to men. This is the end of the road for Josh Allen and the Bills on Saturday. Trey?
So to me, the story of this game is twofold, right? First of all, it's the battle of it comes down to the running game, right? The story of this game is who's going to run the ball the best. I think we can, generally speaking, favor the Ravens in that aspect. One, because of Derrick Henry, but also because of what Lamar Jackson can do on the ground. And James Cook is a solid running back, but he's not Derrick Henry. So I agree with you, Colin, in that whoever controls the clock with the run game is going to win this game. I think. Don't turn whoever wins the turnover battle and controls the clock with the run will win this game. The other story, I think the biggest story of this game, though, is the battle of these quarterbacks who are MVP candidates, right? The question is Lamar Jackson going to win his third, right? Or will they go with Josh Allen? If you look at stats wise, right, Lamar Jackson has it easy. 4,000 passing yards, 41 touchdowns, only 4 picks, over 8, almost 1,000 rushing yards, and I think 6 or 7 rushing touchdowns. Josh Allen, his numbers are not as gaudy, but he has played very, very well for the majority of the season, and he's been here before. The story on Lamar Jackson's side is, again, as I mentioned before with the Steelers game, can he take them all the way? Right? Can he take them, beat the Bills, get to this game, likely against the Chiefs in the AFC Championship game, and take them to the Super Bowl, where we've been saying, okay, he's the MVP, right? And for the most part, hasn't done much in the playoffs and has been really a regular season quarterback, despite the fact that he's one of the best quarterbacks in the league. And on the other hand, you also have a guy in Josh Allen who's been similar, right? He's been able to get his team over the hump and get to the AFC Championship multiple times, but has not been able to get past Patrick Mahomes in the AFC Championship game. So the big question, I think, on both sides of this story between these quarterbacks is, who is going to step up, right? And will their team to a win despite some of the circumstances. Okay, maybe the Ravens have the better run game, or maybe Josh Allen has been there and he's been there, he's been on the Bills longer, and maybe he's been there, done that, and so he's got that advantage from an experience standpoint. At the end of the day, the story is which quarterback is going to play better, and I think on top of the run game, if let's say Derrick Henry has a great game but Lamar Jackson lacks, I think the Bills win, and vice versa. I think if James Cook has a solid game, but Josh Allen doesn't, I think the Ravens win very easily. Um, so I think that to me, that's the big story of those are the two big stories: run game, and it's the battle of the quarterbacks. Who's going to get over the hump?
Yeah, I agree with that. We'll see. Moving right along, we have the Houston Texans versus the Kansas City Chiefs. Trey, your turn to go first here. What are your thoughts here?
I think this is a really really fun game. Um, I'm banking on it being a shootout actually, and I think CJ Stroud is going to show out a little bit. And I think this is another battle of the quarterback situation. I I don't think that the Texans will win this, but I think coming out of this game, we're going to look at the Texans and say, okay, CJ Stroud and the Texans are next up in the AFC. Behind, I would say probably behind the Ravens and the Bills, um, because as we've seen, if you paid attention at all to the Chiefs this season, they are literally like I want to say inches, but maybe even centimeters away from being one of the worst teams in the league. That's how close we probably look up their margin of victory over the course of the season, but they have been, despite the fact that they are 15-2, they were squeaking by the majority of the season, um, and so I think as a result of that, if the Texans are able to play a near perfect game, I think they can actually come out and win this game. Uh, but at the end of the day, I think the Chiefs will come out ready to play. And I think they're gonna, do what they do best, get the ball to Travis Kelce, and play some solid defense in the playoffs. And I think they're gonna come out on top. But like I said, I see a scenario in which if the Chiefs win this game in a shootout, that we're gonna look at CJ Stroud again and say, "Oh man, this guy is one of the best young quarterbacks in the league and is on his way to being one of, I'd say top 5 to 7 quarterback in the league."
Yeah, I think this will be a shootout. I'm of the mindset that this will be the Kansas City Chiefs defense has left a lot to be desired. If you were, to borrow a phrase from a lot of y'all, to borrow a song phrase, those of you that have been on college parties on the PWI campus, primary white institution, for those who don't know the acronym, you know this song very well. The Chiefs have been living on a prayer for a while. I am of the mindset that that's the Chiefs are living on a prayer. I think the Texans, I think, like I said, lack of difference makers is going to get the Texans. I feel like if Stephon Diggs was out there, if it wasn't just CJ Stroud and Tank Dell, I think I'd have more. I think I'd be more encouraged of the Texans' chances to beat Kansas City. I don't think that's going to happen. I think Kansas City Chiefs will win this game pretty easily. I agree with Trey. CJ Stroud will put up the best fight. He'll put up an admirable fight, but I just think the fact that he can't throw the ball to himself, right? So I feel like because he doesn't have, again, my big thing, especially with these AFC matchups, has been who has the difference makers. And, when you have the God quarterback, right? I'm not being blasphemous for my Christians out there. When you have the God QB, like your arms and your team's arms have to be long enough to box with God. And the Texans' arms just aren't long enough to box with Patrick Mahomes off rest, right? Like I think the Chiefs have their problems. Like I said, they've been living on a prayer, but I think a lot of people are overrating the Texans here. Um, just too many injuries at receiver. They benefited from playing the Chargers, so a lot more people are higher on them than they should be. But I just think that this has all the recipes of what happened a few weeks ago. That the Chiefs are just going to just be able to do whatever they want to the Texans defense. And I think that the Texans will put up an admirable effort, but I think by like the second quarter, the Chiefs lay it on them. And I think this will be like a 30-20 type of game, 28-20. Like the score will make it seem closer, but the Chiefs really dominate just because I just don't think the Texans have enough. They don't have enough healthy players to really contend with Patrick Mahomes. But we'll see. If the Texans pull off the upset, that somebody needs to give D'Amico Ryans a contract extension, because if it's the Texans versus whoever wins the Ravens and Bills game, no disrespect to the Texans, but I think the Ravens and Bills would be very happy. But I just don't think that's going to happen. You don't really see a lot of wild card teams do well since the Giants did it. And so I just feel like the Texans had all their receivers. I would say there's a chance, but they don't really have a difference maker at receiver right now other than Tank Dell. And so I kind of got to say that I think Kansas City Chiefs win this, like I said, pretty handily. I wouldn't be surprised if it's 28-14, but I think 28-20, 30-20. I feel like Trey said, I feel like CJ Stroud takes full advantage of facing the defending champs on the national stage, but it just won't be enough.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. And for those who were paying attention and wanted to know that the Chiefs' margin of victory this year was about 3.4 to 3.5 ish. That there, if you take their total points for and their total points against and subtract, it was about 60 points. So over the course of 17 games, that's just insane. Like, think about that. That means their margin of victory was barely a field goal. It was it was only 0.4 more than a field goal.
Yeah. So moving right along to the matchup that I know a lot of our fans that watch the show Philadelphia care about. The Rams versus the Eagles, previews and predictions. Now I will be at coming down from a retreat or at the end of a retreat in Maryland. Trey knows which retreat I'm going to. I will be indisposed. I probably will put an article up, but this will probably be as much as I'll be able to talk about this game right now, and then I'll probably do an article based on if I can catch the second half or not. But I feel like this will be about this is about a trench battle here. This right here is the game that'll probably be the best game of the weekend. But this is a trench battle. This is about the Eagles' massive defensive and offensive line versus the Rams' undersized offensive line and defensive line. I feel like this is the game where the Eagles offense finally puts it together. If you really look at it, the Eagles' current, playoff, table is winding up a lot like what happened to them in the Super Bowl run in 2017, 2018, where like you have an ugly game. All right. The ugly game, which just happened to them versus the Packers. And now you're going to have the return to form game, which I think will be against the Rams. They're already saying it's going to be cold, sleeting. Like we might have a snowball. Saquon might have his Shady McCoy moment, his snowball game. But I just think this is going to be a game where Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkley stand up. The offense looks good. Like I'm not a better, but if you are a better, I would hammer those. I would hammer the AJ Brown 2 touchdown overs because he's definitely going to get at least 2 touchdowns. I don't think the Rams will have much of anything for the Eagles offense. The last time they played, Saquon Barkley had like his best game as an Eagle, like dang near 300 yards and 2 touchdowns. I think it was 240, 250. I don't think that's going to change here. I think you're going to see a game where Saquon Barkley gets like 2 touchdowns. Jalen throws 2 or 3 touchdowns, probably one to Goddard, one or two to AJ Brown. So yeah, I think this game will probably end up being a shootout, but I think the Eagles will win pretty handily. I think that the Eagles are basically, bullies. They bully you, especially at home, especially in the Snow Bowl. or at a game where the weather will affect you. I think if there's any quarterback where weather won't affect them, it'll be Matthew Stafford. But I still think that, Father Time is undefeated. I think that, a regular game having Josh Sweat in them coming after you, but a game where it's sleeting, it's snowing, it's raining, like the hits are just going to add up. I'm not saying he's going to get injured, but I just think that the Eagles will win this game pretty handily. I think, like, I'm tired of predicting 30-point games, so I'll just go, 30-14 Eagles. I'm sorry, 28-14 Eagles. I said I wouldn't do 30-point games, so 28-14 Eagles. I think that maybe if it's a shootout, 28-21, the score will make it look a lot closer than it was. I think the Eagles will pretty handily take care of the Rams. But I still think Matthew Stafford, you can't undercount Matthew Stafford. So, Trey?
So I think this is actually going to be slightly reminiscent of the game in the regular season, but I think our passing game is actually going to look a little bit better. Saquon had like 255 rushing yards at a 70-yard touchdown run. I think, and this is just a random thought. I have nothing to prove this or anything really, but I think this is where we see Father Time smack Matthew Stafford in the face. And I think the Rams are not going to look very good at all throughout the course of this game. And I think the Eagles will win this pretty handily. I think something similar to the score we had in the regular season. I don't necessarily think they'll put up 37 points, but I think this is going to be a 34-17 type of game where we win pretty handily. Maybe even a 34-21 type of game where maybe it looks slightly like it's a little bit closer than it actually was, or maybe even the Rams get like a garbage time touchdown that make it look like it was a 10-point game or something like that. But I think the Eagles win this pretty handily. That the defense plays well and kind of shows out against Matt Stafford, and like I said, I think I don't necessarily think Matt Stafford's going to retire per se after the season, but I think Father Time is going to smack him around a little bit in this game, and the Eagles are going to win pretty handily.
All right, so we're in agreement there. Moving right along to the other game that'll probably be really good this weekend. The Commanders versus the Lions. Previews and predictions. Trey, you want to start here?
Sure, I'll start. I'll start off by saying this is the end of the line for the Commanders. Jaden McDaniels is a great quarterback. He's got a bright future with the Commanders. They have played very well for the most part in this season, across the season. Jaden McDaniels has played phenomenal. Like I think he even has, he's going to be rookie of the year, but I think he even has a chance, a very small chance, albeit, at winning MVP just because of how well he's played and can't say quite carried this team, but has brought this team to the playoffs and a spot that we really didn't expect them to be in. Given the state of the Commanders organization. So yeah, I think the Lions win this. They've got the experience. They've got the advantage in coaching, and I think it's one of those situations where Jaden McDaniels is going to put up his best fight, similar to a CJ Stroud type of situation. But we haven't had a rookie quarterback go to the Super Bowl, and obviously this is not to go to the Super Bowl, but I think the Commanders run end year. I think Jaden McDaniels plays fairly well, but makes a few key mistakes as a young guy in the playoffs, maybe throws an interception or two, and I think the Lions come out on top. I think this is going to be like a 28-21 type of game, fairly close, but Lions at the end of the day are the more experienced team, and they move on to play the Eagles in the NFC Championship game.
Yeah, I think I'm of the same mindset. I think the Commanders will look good. I think the Lions basically have Trey and I playing in their secondary, and so I think that Jaden Daniels will have a field day. I think this will be a lot closer game. Like most of the Commanders games are close games, as the Eagles found out. So Jaden Daniels is a great QB, and he is almost there to that cheat code level. But he's not there yet. He's a difference maker, and like he's the ultimate difference maker for the Commanders. I think this will be a lot closer of a game than we think, but I think the Lions will with big balls with their big balls coach. He'll go for it. He'll go for it a little bit more on fourth down than he should. But I think the Lions win this game probably like 31-28. I think that is a lot closer of a game. I think like Trey said, I echo that Jaden Daniels will have a drive last minute at some kind of way. It'll either be an interception, it'll be the reverse of what happened last week, right? He'll be on a game winning drive. He might get it to the Lions 30 or 20, and then he either throws an interception, he fumbles, doesn't work out on the fourth down or something. But I just think that eventually the magic has to run out, and I think that the clock is going to strike midnight. The Commanders are a great team; they're up and coming. They're definitely a future NFC East and future playoff contender. Obviously, they have arrived, and as long as they don't mess it up, they should be able to contend in the NFC. At least be a wild card team, if nothing else. So I am of the mindset that the Lions should win this game. They have the talent advantage. They have the coaching advantage. I think the only advantage that Jaden Daniels has, and this is no knock on Jared Goff, it's just that Jaden Daniels is the better pure quarterback than Jared Goff. And I think that's the only real advantage that I can give the Commanders, is that they have the quarterback advantage. Everything else is to the Lions. And so I just think that, I think that I think Dan Campbell will be able to get his team to another NFC Championship game, and he'll be seeing the Eagles. But hey, if the Commanders knock off the Lions, that just means a game in the link. Commanders, Eagles. So either way, it works out for the Eagles. They either get to go to Detroit, and play in optimal conditions in a dome, or they get to play in better conditions in Philly with a fan team, not better weather-wise, but just better home with a home field advantage either way. So I think Detroit should win this game. 31. I'm not going to say pretty handily, but at least 31-24 Lions.
And forgive me if I was. I guess my brain is on basketball. I called him Jaden McDaniels, thinking of the guard on the Timberwolves, Jaden Daniels.
You made him Irish. Man. Speaking of, no pun intended here. Penn State falls to Notre Dame. I mean, those of us in PA and in Delaware and Jersey, and anybody who was a We Are fan, whether you are a student or just a native Pennsylvanian, I know you hung on every word of this game. Like, it looked like Penn State was
Where are
going
my
to
tissues at? I need
overcome
my tissues.
the life Penn State was gonna do it. Then Drew Allers threw that interception, took stash defeat out of the jaws of victory. And I think this was the game right here. Like, Penn State, no shame to Notre Dame, but Penn State had this game. They dominated. Notre Dame came back. I think if Penn State took more advantage of those touchdowns, if Drew Aller was a little bit better, I'm glad he has ignored that hype and has decided to stay in school so he can learn and develop. And that it seems like, James Franklin has been able to, convince the talent of Penn State to come back. So that's good. They got Singleton and Katron Allen back. I think it looks good for Penn State. They just need a receiver, and I think that was their undoing in this game. Again, this is a theme. It's not a theme that I intentionally tried, but this is just how God worked this out. Lack of difference makers. It'll get you in professional in the NFL, and it'll get you in college football. And this is what happened to Penn State. They can only rely on the best tight end in the country, but so long, and their best running back duo in the country. But eventually, Drew Aller had to sit back there and find a receiver, and he couldn't do it. And so I'm of the mindset that if James Franklin can find, an A.J. Brown, a Devontae Smith, a difference maker at receiver in this freshman class, or can get it in the transfer portal, that he needs to scour. Forget the tight end. Penn State always has the two things that Penn State, excuse me, always has, as Trey knows, is a tight end and a middle linebacker. They always have that. And the running back, ever since Saquon came through, and even before that, they always have running back, tight end, and middle linebackers and cornerbacks. They always have that. James Franklin and his staff, y'all need to comb the transfer portal, comb Pennsylvania, comb Delaware, comb New Jersey, comb New York, find that difference making wide receiver, because that is what you need. You need that AJ Brown. You need that guy who can freak it. He's down there somewhere who can make that catch, because that's what they were missing. They didn't have that difference maker at receiver, and that was a problem for Penn State in this game. Notre Dame had the difference maker, and the difference maker wound up being a kicker who was very, very cold, but wound up making that kick. And you gotta just tip your hat to Marcus Freeman and Notre Dame. They're the wild card team that caught fire, and we'll see if they can beat Ohio State on Monday. We'll preview that game in a minute, but I just think Penn State was undone by the fact that they didn't have many difference makers on the field at receiver. Trey?
Yeah, this is one of those games where you look at it and you say, man, Penn State should have won. But looking at the box score, and Kylan is absolutely correct. The Penn State did not. None of their receivers caught one pass that night against Notre Dame. They had, I think their tight end had maybe 6 or 7 catches. One of their backups had a catch. The running back had a few catches, but there were no receivers caught a pass against Notre Dame, which is just absolutely insane, an absolutely insane stat to think about. And so they just didn't do enough offensively. Like, you can't not get the ball to your receivers and expect to win against such a talented team in Notre Dame. It's as simple as that. They need to go find their guy, whoever it is. They haven't really had a guy like that in a while. And Allen's, to go back to an old Penn State guy, and Allen Robinson type of guy to make plays on the outside. As much as the NFL is, for many teams, including the Eagles, people have done a lot of 2 tight end setups, and people love tight ends now more than ever. You still need somebody on the outside who can stretch the field and make the safeties do some work. And Penn State didn't do that at all in this game. So, am I upset? Yeah, absolutely. I wanted Penn State to go all the way. I thought this was an opportunity for Penn State as a program to show that they're still, upper tier team, and they have all season. They played very well, but they proved me wrong. I thought that they had an opportunity during the season to get that number 1 spot, and they showed that they just didn't have it enough, and that's the end of the story. Go get some, like Kylan said, go get some playmakers on the outside at wide receiver, and try to keep the team together as it is. Hopefully, not too many players transfer. As that's become common in today's college football world, and come back next year stronger, hopefully. On the other hand, for Notre Dame, this is a big thing. Notre Dame has always been a pretty darn good team, but they haven't been this good in a while. So I'm looking forward to what's going to happen. January 20th. January 20th is going to be a wild day. January 19th, TikTok goes away. January 20th is Inauguration Day and Martin Luther King Day on the same day, and the College National Football Championship. It's a wild 2 days, but looking forward to that game. You're on mute, Kylan, I think.
Game looked really good, like I said. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah. Penn State Notre Dame won that game from Penn State. That's Marcus Freeman did a heck of a job coaching them up, and he took advantage of some miscues by Penn State's offense. And now they're in the championship game. Unfortunately, facing Ohio State, taking away what I said what happened, which it would be a Big Ten team. But we'll see if Notre Dame can compete the Big Ten sweep, beating Oregon, now beating Penn State. Will they beat Ohio State? We'll get to that game in a minute. But speaking of Ohio State versus Texas, I think this game, I can start here. I think this game went the way we all expected it to go. Like, Texas was good, but the secondary left a lot to be desired. And, again, Penn State didn't have difference makers at receivers. And the one thing that Ohio State has done since the Chris Carter days, which Trey and I weren't alive for, but is that they have those difference makers at receivers, right? Marvin Harrison Jr., now Jeremiah Smith. Like, if you're not triple teaming Jeremiah Smith, he's going to kill you. And that's what happened in Texas. Jeremiah's going to kill you. That's exactly what happened to borrow wrestling chant. Like, some insert name here is going to kill you. That's exactly what happened. Jeremiah Smith killed Texas. That's what happened. Texas had a chance, right? I feel like ever since the post Vince Young chance, somebody in my field in sports media is always saying Texas has a chance, and then they do something stupid and it costs them the game, right? And that's what happened. Texas had a chance. They had Ohio State in 3rd and long. They had the chance to go up, get Quinn Ewers back out there on the field, at least get a field goal, be in good punting position, because we know in college punters can't really punt unless they go to Syracuse. And so I'm of the mindset that I'm of the mindset that that's what happened once and basically Ohio State gave it up. They did a screen pass to their running back, and that running back made a few people miss. It started looking like the ghost of LaShawn McCoy was out there, the way he was juking people, and he scored a touchdown. The game gets tied, and that was all she wrote, because that was Texas 14-7. Had, like I said, Ohio State on the ropes and didn't take advantage. And that's a bad mistake to give Jeremiah Smith and them an opportunity to tie the game. And then we know what happened in the 3rd and 4th quarter. And bada bing, bada boom, Ohio State gets to face Notre Dame. And I just think this is the difference between having a difference maker at multiple receiving positions and nothing other than a quarterback on Texas' side. And I know they had a future first-round pick wide receiver in Robinson, and they had a couple of defenders. But, I mean, they're not defending Jeremiah Smith. So, like I said, unless you're triple teaming him, he's gonna win Ohio State games, and that's what he did in this game, and that was the difference here. Trey?
Yeah, so I watched this game and I turned it off, I think, at halftime. Or maybe I might have watched a little bit of the 3rd quarter. Jeremiah Smith, those are the only 2 words I can say. They couldn't stop him. I mean, it's rare. I mean, I shouldn't say it's rare, but you don't necessarily often see a receiver take over a game like that. I mean, the quarterback did a great job too. He put some balls where only where only Jeremiah Smith could get them. There was the one, I think, in the 2nd quarter, I want to say, over the middle of the field, and the ball actually got tipped by the safety, but Jeremiah Smith caught it, stayed focused on the ball, caught it, and waltzes into the end zone. Yeah, Jeremiah Smith just dominated that game, and Texas had absolutely no response whatsoever. And that's the difference, to go back to what we were talking about with Penn State. That's the difference between having a difference maker at receiver like that and not having it. You give Penn State a Jeremiah Smith, or even somebody half as good as Jeremiah Smith, I think Penn State wins that game. And we saw that Texas, the new team on the block in the SEC, they've been good all season, but weren't good enough defensively to combat what Jeremiah Smith and the rest of the offense had the offer. So
Facts. Moving right along. Ohio State versus Notre Dame. Preview and predictions. Like Trey said, it's a crazy weekend, MLK weekend, inauguration day for those of you that are going to watch that. And this national title game, which may or may not, probably will see an appearance from, our future or in a couple of days, actual vice president, because I think he went to Ohio State, JD Vance. So, so it'll be, I don't know. I think a lot of people were probably rooting for Notre Dame in this game. So I'm of the mindset here. I'm gonna let Trey go, but Ohio State versus Notre Dame previews and predictions. Trey.
yeah, I think you are correct in that JD Vance did go to Ohio State, but yes, he did go. He went to Ohio State versus Bachelors versus JD went to Yale, but I, I'm hard pressed to say that this is going to be a blowout in favor of Ohio State. I think talent wise, both teams are very talented, but I think it's very clear to me, at least, that Ohio State is the more talented team. I think Notre Dame will probably put up a fight early, and I think it'll stay close maybe till halftime, and then I think late, or I shouldn't say late. I think in the second half, Ohio State is going to pull away and show that they're the better team. I'm thinking this is a 28-14 type of game, maybe a 28-17 or something like that type of range. A clear victory for Ohio State, but like I said, I think Notre Dame puts up a fight first half, and it's maybe even tied at halftime. But I think Ohio State is the better team, and I think ultimately their talent and their coaching is going to pull them away from Notre Dame and show that they're the better team and that they are the best team in college football and the national champions. Also, many of us will be in mourning as we watch this game. Mourning for many reasons. I won't speak on one of them, but many will be mourning the loss of TikTok. The TikTok funeral will be the day before. But for those who don't know what I'm talking about, if you haven't been paying attention to the news, TikTok will be banned from the App Store and from the Google Store or whatever app store you have on your phone or your device on the 19th. So that'll be hopefully that will the game will be good enough to take our minds off of the loss of TikTok for those who are active on TikTok and are and use that as maybe even a primary source of income. But yeah, I'm calling about 28-17 Ohio State. They pull away in the second half against Notre Dame.
Well, I mean, I'm on the mindset that unless they it's either be banned or be sell or sell. For those that don't know what the dynamic is at play there, like there's two conditions here. ByteDance can either sell the American portion of the company to somebody and stay open,
Yeah. The
or
irony of it, and not to get too much off topic, but the irony of that situation is that many of the owners, I believe actually, American citizens, United States citizens of the United States, actually have a majority ownership of TikTok at this point. So the irony of them trying to force a sale of the American portion of the company doesn't even make any sense because the majority of the owners are actually United States citizens. But I digress.
yeah. So a lot of people gonna be in mourning for that inauguration or whatever, depending on it'll be either mourning, either a funeral or celebration, depending on what you did or didn't do in November. I'm of the mindset that, as far as this game, there are, Notre Dame is just a team, they're a talented team, but they have a ceiling. And I think that, I haven't seen a team yet besides Penn State have be able to stop Jeremiah Smith. And so I think that the one thing I know is Ohio State has shut down corners and shut down safeties, and Notre Dame does not. And I feel like they benefit from being able to put quarterbacks on the ground. And I don't necessarily know of how big and imposing Ohio State's offensive line is if they'll be able to do that. So I think this game will end probably probably midway through the second quarter. I think Jeremiah Smith. This will be very reminiscent of the Oregon game because I just don't think that. I think Jeremiah Smith is going to be the MVP. I think Jeremiah Smith is going to, make a lot of people very happy um, in Ohio, and Ohio State alums. I feel like Notre Dame will have nothing for Jeremiah Smith unless they decide to totally blitz and Will Howard panics. I feel like um, Notre Dame has very much benefited from quarterbacks and coaches panicking on their last couple of games. And so I feel like this won't be a close game. I feel like, Notre Dame, Ohio State will just take full advantage. They will bully Notre Dame's out small offensive defensive line, and they will, do what they're supposed to do and be a national champion. So JD Vance will most likely will not most likely will be vice president and watch his alma mater destroy Notre Dame. So I'm of the mindset that that's what's going to happen. And Ohio State, and their alums will be very very happy. Notre Dame not so much, but hey, at least you made it. Marcus Freeman made some history before Black History Month, being the first Black coach ever to make it to a national title game. So congrats to him. I should say, to be respectful of both sides of his heritage, Black and Asian. So Blasian, the first Blasian coach to make it there. So good for him. And I'm of the mindset that unfortunately for him, he doesn't have a Jeremiah Smith on his team, and Ohio State does. So very unfortunate for him, but Ohio State will win this game pretty handily, and a lot of people will be happy, and some parts of America and the country will not be. So, one way or another. But the one good thing is Marcus Freeman is so good. He's made a lot of people forget that they hate Notre Dame. so,
Yeah. And
so,
I want to say, ask for forgiveness from the NCAA football gods. If you heard me talking about Ohio State versus Texas, I was actually I guess I had a brain fart and was thinking about the Ohio State versus Oregon game. Because Jeremiah Smith actually didn't play very well in the Ohio State Texas game. I think he only had one catch, but nonetheless, I think my prediction is still the same for this game. I think something about 28-17. I agree with you, Colin. I think this game is probably over at somewhere in the second quarter or just about at halftime. That this game maybe is tied at halftime, and third quarter is going to be the I think where Ohio State pulls away and wins the game.
Mm-hmm. Like I said, Marcus Freeman, I hope you have the triple team or the box and one on Jeremiah Smith, because that's the only chance you got in this game. Like if you're Steph Curry defending him, that's the only way you might win this game. But yeah, so moving on along to a little more serious topic as we enter. That was the wrap on the football portion. Now we're entering the basketball, more serious portion of this show. Caitlin Clark and Paige Beckers both had stalker cases in the last few weeks. Paige Beckers, for those of you that don't know, she was first. She had a stalker that was banned from Stores, Connecticut, and banned from being, I think, within like a foot of her, because he had been kind of like Caitlin Clark's stalker as well, sending DMs, doing a lot of different things to make Paige Beckers and the University of Connecticut beef up her security, lessen them public appearances, and make sure that he couldn't step foot on that campus again. And so, Paige Beckers had that happen to her. And then we found out this week, Caitlin Clark, similar thing, guy DMing her, the same thing, thinking they're in a relationship, thinking that there's something going on other than a fan and famous person relationship, and taking it a little too far, being banned from stepping within foot of her or Indiana or Iowa's campus, and a lot of other things. Very, very serious. So, my reaction to this is, unfortunately, and I think this may happen to a lot of more female athletes than men athletes a lot, where you have these crazy guys who think, and boys, who think that they are in a relationship, or like that there's something serious going on with them. And in this case, Caitlin Clark and Paige Beckers, and they make it so, they have to take it to the next step, get restraining orders, get beefed up security. Both of them can obviously afford it, but it's very unfortunate that you can't live a regular life or be or be able to have real human interaction because you're worried about stuff like this. And it's very unfortunate that in this case, it went a little too far, and they had to beef up security, had to put both of these guys in jail. And I think it's better for them and women all over the world that these two nutcases were put in jail, and that they cannot step within feet of either Caitlin Clark or Paige Beckers. But unfortunately, this is the price of being talented and being good and athletic. Unfortunately, you have some nutcases that you have to deal with, and it's very unfortunate. But I'm happy that this was handled by law enforcement and by security, and nothing horrible happened to either Caitlin Clark or Paige Beckers that would scar them for life. So, Trey?
Yeah, this is one of those things where I think this is a kind of it comes with the territory almost, and I don't mean that as to say that this is justified in any way. It's not. But when you get to their level of fame, and this is women and men. Obviously, I think women probably experience this a little bit different than probably experiences a little bit differently than men, but it's one of those things where I forget the term for it, but it happens a lot with influencers and celebrities where there's a perceived relationship that is had between a fan and a celebrity that is actually not realistic. And so the way I'll put it is it's an unfortunate situation is all I can say. And I hope nothing real serious, and I hope there's no harm that comes their way. And I really, to me, it's a shame that this even happens. Like I get, like I said, you get to this level of fame and there's a certain level of privacy that you just lose. But at the same time, it's unfortunate that someone, especially someone of their age, their Paige Beckers is probably 20, 21-ish, around there, maybe a little bit older. Excuse me. And Caitlin Clark is right there, 22. And I'm just thinking, for someone who has four sisters, like if they ever got to that level of fame, or just in general, just being normal people, like I can't imagine them being stalked. And trust and believe, um, you would never hear about that stalker again. I'll just say that. So I don't know. It's a tricky situation, and hopefully, whatever security measures have been taken for both of them are sufficient, and that neither of these stalkers are able to get through any of the security measures, and that there aren't any other stalkers that arise, or and nothing else arises in that kind of vein of someone trying to kind of get to them, whether it's at games or whether it's in their personal life outside of games. So I'm glad they're safe, but it's a shame that this type of stuff happens, and that even it is even necessary to kind of beef up security, because two women aren't able to just live their lives normally.
Facts. Moving right along to the shock of our lives this weekend. The Sixers were going to build a downtown stadium, and then Comcast kind of flexed, right? And Comcast and the Philadelphia Sixers worked out a deal for a new stadium in South Philly and a 50-50 partnership. So Trey, your reaction? Well, I can start here because you started on the other one. Who started last? It was me, right? So yeah, you start.
Yeah, so I mean, I was actually the feature film I mentioned earlier in the show. I was actually on set, and I just happened to be lunchtime, and I got the notification. I said, "Oh wow!" Ironically, a couple people on set are from Philly, even though we're working in Atlanta, and I was shocked. I thought that, the city had approved it. It was, in 6 or 7 years, we were going to have a stadium at, you know, downtown, right down the street from City Hall. I thought that, you know, we even there, me and my siblings and my god siblings were actually looking at buying a house over there because we knew the property value was going to only rise because of the stadium. And now that's not happening anymore, and they're staying in South Philly. Personally, I like where the stadium is now. Obviously, it's not. It's a little bit. Oh, it's away from the city. It's not amongst um, kind of where you would like an arena to be necessarily, but at the same time, um, it's convenient because it's right there next to everything. Right, you got Citizens Bank, you got Wells Fargo, and then Lincoln Financial is right down the street. So, uh, on one hand, the Sixers don't necessarily get their own building per se, or have full ownership of a building, but on the other hand, now they've got a good, 50-50 partnership with Comcast to have a new arena in South Philly. So we shall see. And I'm hoping, if you've ever been at Wells Fargo, it's a nice building, but we'll see whatever kind of upgrades the Sixers get in the arena, whether it'll be bigger or whatever the case may be. And I'm hopefully, whenever, however long this takes, I'm guessing it'll probably take 6 or 7 years, same time frame, pretty much. But that hopefully, as we get this new stadium, we can say, oh, the Sixers do deserve a new arena. And that looking back over that, once the arena is here, that we can look back and say, oh, okay, the Sixers won a championship or two, and they truly did deserve a new arena, because it would truly stink, to be sorry for the Chargers fans, to be a team like that where you're just a perennial team that wins games but never gets anywhere in the Super Bowl or anything like that, never wins anything, but yet gets a new stadium, just because there's money out there. So I can't say I'm quite shocked. I was more caught off guard because I didn't anticipate that. I didn't know of any contract negotiations that the Sixers and Comcast were still having. I assumed that it was a done deal and that we were going to have a stadium, or rather an arena in downtown Center City, Philly. But that is not happening, alas.
Yeah, I mean, I think it all but was a done deal, and the only reason this happened was because Comcast didn't want to be in competition with the Sixers because they knew they would lose. So I'm of the mindset that, and now that we have the raw numbers, that the Sixers bring in about close to $1 million a night to the city. That is the reason why they had all the power, and I would caution anybody that is talking about, oh, their record doesn't mean they should have a stadium. I mean, if you just look at all the Philly teams, none of them had a championship before they actually got there, unless it was the Phillies when they got their stadium. So, I am of the mindset that, this is the whole thing that I talked about with the stadium argument, where stupidity and emotion got more involved than facts. Like, Trey knows from being an accountant, anybody with money knows money talks. No one was ever going to turn down millions or billions of dollars. This whole thing was the fact that and this is what I always say, this is more of a basketball city than it is a football city, a hockey city, a soccer city. This is a basketball city because it's a majority Black city, and people don't understand the dynamics because they're not from here, or they're transplants, or they're college students that came here later. You don't understand the dynamics here. The dynamics here is just simple. The shadow mayors of Philadelphia, the shadow company that runs the city, Comcast. This is getting into the next question. Flexed here. This is what this was. This was not the Chinatown activists. This was not a poll. This was not anything. Trey knows how this works. He's a money guy. He's seen with this type of money in the companies that he's worked with. This is what happens. Money talks, and things that you had planned, stuff changes. And I said this. I said this a long time ago. I said the city knows that they are going to lose the Sixers because these owners are from North Jersey and they have no loyalty to Philadelphia. Um, that they will leave for Camden, New Jersey. Like the practice stadium is there, the stadium is already there, so it's already set up. And this came up in the press conference. If you watch the press conference, like there were a lot of people who weren't in city government yet or in state government and had nothing to do with this. It came up a lot that they were very unhappy that Josh Harris and them have a practice facility across the bridge, like because it's in Camden, New Jersey, and so that's money that the city is not getting, right? And so the most important thing outside of that, outside of the fact that Josh Harris and them got their cake and ate it too, right? They got to take the gallery. For those of you that don't know, Chinatown and them already lost because the Sixers now own that state. They're not reneging on anything. Y'all saw the votes. If you saw the city council meeting a couple weeks ago, the one thing that no one said was that the Sixers are giving that land back to the city because they're not. They're not giving the gallery back to the city. They're not giving anything around the gallery that's not Jefferson Hospital, Jefferson Station back. They own that land now. It is going to more than likely either be a team store, Comcast Tower 3. The situation is basically just reversed here because whoever gets that building is going to owe the Sixers money and pay rent to the Sixers. It'll probably end up being a practice facility. Who knows what it'll end up being? There's going to be probably something for the future WNBA team that's coming here as well. But I would caution you guys that, I wouldn't be doing victory laps because everybody associated with this that's not the Sixers, the NBA, or Comcast lost. Like, the mall is going to close. It won't be there anymore. Chinatown is going to get gentrified. It's going to happen. Slow going, but it will happen. And ultimately, Center City and down in the downtown area lost because not only do you lose a Macy's a few days before that, now you lose the Sixer Stadium. So downtown lost too. Like everybody lost who's not Comcast. If you're not the 76ers, you're not the NBA, you're not the Philadelphia Eagles because, this is where this comes in. The Eagles are going to get a new stadium too. But like South Philly won. Everybody who lives in South Philly won because now their property is going to go astronomical because of all the stuff that is coming because of the Sixers staying and all the stuff that wasn't coming because there weren't 40 plus games to benefit from. And as we found out, I kind of suspected it, so did Trey, that the Sixers kind of bring in either the second most or the most money in the city as far as the big five sports teams, because you have about $500,000 to $1 million that comes in every night to the Sixers and to the city because of taxes and everything else. So, this is like I said, unfortunate for anybody not named the Philadelphia 76ers, Comcast, and South Philly. Moving along. Was this a victory for activists Chinatown or just Chinatown or just Comcast flexing? Trey?
Yeah, I mean, as you mentioned, Kyle, and I think this is just a scenario where Comcast Flex, they're one of the largest companies in the States and probably in the world. But Comcast was flexing. I mean, as we both mentioned, the deal for the arena to be in downtown was done. They bought that land, and there's no reneging on that, buying that property, right? So yeah, Comcast flexed a little bit. They said, I think it was a little bit of a flex, but I think it was also a little bit of a kneeling down almost, where it was kind of like Comcast knew that they didn't want to lose the Sixers because obviously that's a large income source for them. And so on one hand, it was a little bit of a flex because only Comcast could have done is, pulled it from under everybody's, pulled the rug from underneath everybody and said, oh no, actually it's a 50-50 deal with the Sixers and the Sixers ownership group. But at the same time, it was kind of like, hey, we still want you here. So we're going to make it happen. So it was kind of a forced flex, if that makes sense. Because otherwise the Comcast would have been in a situation where you've got I mean, obviously, Citizens Bank is still there, um, and the building would still be there, right? For to be used for the Flyers games and then other events and stuff like that. But like Colin mentioned, also the Sixers are pretty much the number one revenue bringer when it comes to the four major teams in Philly. Uh, it's probably I don't know the exact numbers, but I would venture to say it's the Sixers, and then most likely it's the Eagles next. Um, so to lose that is major for Comcast. Uh, so yes, a flex, but a forced flex.
But I mean, like I said, I mean, I say this about coaches, right? Big Balls Comcast showed up. They had it kind of came up again. If you, I would advise you all, whether you're, for or against the arena, to go watch that press conference on Monday that just happened. And it'll be pretty apparent to you. Kind of the Brian Roberts kind of let it slip that they had we would call it a Freudian slip, but I just call it essentially like I did it thing where he basically all but said, hey, I placed a call to Adam Silver and basically said, hey, we got these rights to put the NBA on Peacock and NBC in October, and I can't have I can't have I can't lose my number one source of income in that building, right? So I can't lose I can't be giving you, Adam Silver, billions to a billion to billions of dollars, and then also losing a million a night because the Sixers are downtown come 2031, right? And so, which is, the deal for those of you that don't know, is a 10-year media rights deal. So, like, for the last 3 to 4 years of that deal, Comcast will be will be losing out on money because the Sixers will not be giving them rent. So, I'm of the mindset that that's what happened here. Brian Roberts and Comcast well connected, and the beneficiary of being the main media partner of that NBA deal, placed a call, said, hey, we can't lose it. The other portion of this is, you know, the Phillies don't bring that type of money in. The Eagles don't bring that type of money in. The Eagles do want a new stadium that's coming to the link. The Wells Fargo Center won't be the only building that won't be there anymore in another couple of years. The link won't be there anymore either. And if this is news to you, you haven't been paying attention. Roger Goodell couldn't have that either, like, because that would make the Eagles look stupid. Because I mean, if you were paying attention, the law that the Sixers got passed that is not changing either is that whichever new team, whether it was the Flyers, the Eagles, or the Phillies, when they got tired of their stadium, if they got public money, the Sixers would then get public money. So that kind of screws you over if you're Jeffrey Lurie and Roger Goodell, because the one thing that the NFL is good at is forcing the cities that they are in to pay them money to build these new stadiums. So you can't have that either. So you can't have one of the richest owners, because this is what it is, right? Josh Harris is rich. The reason he can afford the Devils and afford the Commanders is because, like came out on Monday, he makes $500,000 to $1 million a night off his main baby, which is the Sixers. I know a lot of people in Philly don't understand this because you don't understand economics. I'm not the accountant here. I can have Trey explain the economics to you better than I can. But I mean, you have a lobbyist whose people went to Penn. The daddy was a lawyer, mom was a doctor at Penn Hospital. Like you have somebody who is at every game essentially. That's not on a Sunday. He does what he needs to do. I may have problems with Josh Harris, but the one thing I can say is he puts money into his baby. And so what happened here is, like I said, Comcast flexing and using what they had. We talk all the time on this podcast about, use it or lose it. And Comcast used it. And there's a lot of people who are in the you have a lot of people. It was a win-win, right? The politicians get to say it stays in South Philly. The Sixers get to not spend money, and Comcast now gets to spend all the money to build them a new stadium. And Josh Harris can continue to keep it, and the rest of the Sixers owners can continue to keep their $500,000 to $1 million, and then now the lead tenant in a building that they should have always been the lead tenant in anyway, and now get to reap the benefits of South Philly basically becoming the Battery. And so I'm gonna let just Trey's there. I think he's been there. Our mayor Sherelle Parker basically said that she wants South Philly to become the Battery. Trey, I'm gonna let you
Yeah,
talk
so I
more about the
mean,
Battery, because I
yeah,
don't know
so
what
for
that is.
those for those who don't know, the Battery is where the Atlanta Braves play, or they don't play at the Battery, but their stadium is connected to the Battery. And if I were to compare it, right, um, imagine I'm trying to think of a similar example, but imagine you take what we have right in South Philly, where you have Citizens Bank Park, you got Xfinity Live, you got gyms, or what is it? Is it Geno's right there? Um, and, and yeah, right, yuck. And you have Wells Fargo, right? So imagine there's only the Philly Stadium there, but there's 20, 30 restaurants, and there's this whole big encased area where you can walk around inside like an outdoor mall almost and find different bars and restaurants. And that's what the Battery is. Huge revenue bringer, not even just from the restaurants being there and just like, them paying rent to whoever owns the Battery. I imagine maybe the Braves probably have some ownership percentage in it. But also parking, like that, just alone on parking revenue, the Battery gets a lot of money. So if you want South Philly, that whole complex there, to be like the Battery, you got a lot of work to do, because there's just the one restaurant there for real. And in Xfinity Live, and then Geno's, and
Don't
that's
forget
it.
the casino. Don't forget the casino.
Well, you got the casino, but in comparison, the Battery is much more exciting. I went to the Battery for New Year's Eve, for New Year's, and it was body to body, like, and all the bars and clubs were filled up. Places that didn't have a cover charge had a cover charge, because it was the spot to be. And if you live in Atlanta, there's a couple spots to be, right, when it comes to like highly populated areas where people go to shop or eat. There's Atlantic Station, there's Lenox, and there's the Battery. And I guess there's Chattahoochee Food Works for the Atlanta people who are watching this. But I mean, yeah, like it has the opportunity to be close to what the Battery is, but it's nowhere near what the Battery is right now. Not even close.
Right. No one's saying that, but that's what they're. For those of you
I
that
know,
don't
I
know,
get you, but I'm
that,
just saying,
that
if that's what they want to do, they've got a lot of work to do.
no, they already had the plans. That's why John Middleton and the rest of these owners forced the Sixers.
Yeah.
A lot of this is some inside baseball here. For those of you that know, not many people do. This is basically what happened. Jeff Lurie, John Middleton, and because Comcast owns the Flyers, all got together. Basically said we can't have the Sixers leaving, because if they leave, no one else plays 40 plus games in South Philly, right? So,
Right.
the parking, the money, the apartments and stuff that's about to come on those parking lots and stuff, the condos and everything else that benefits from the Sixers being the main tenant and having the building that everybody's favorite artist wants to be in. Like, you're losing that because everybody's the 40 plus games are going downtown, right? So, they kind of, as Trey said, Comcast kind of flexed. Philly, Jeff Lurie, John Middleton, and the rest of the owners here in the city also kind of flexed, because what basically happened to me, from the outside looking in, seems like what happened was the Sixers. Everybody realized the Sixers were very serious about leaving, and they also apparently had some side deals with Camden going on too. But the Sixers were very serious about leaving, and everybody was like, "We can't have the main engine of the city not be here. Like, we can't have the reason that everybody comes to South Philly not be here." And I know there's a lot of y'all who's very emotional. We'll get to this in a minute. What's going on with the Sixers? You actually think that a lot of y'all It's kind of like what happened in November. A lot of y'all are lying, saying I'm not going to the games, but you be right there at the games. Like, I'm of the mindset that this is what happened. A lot happened here, but as Trey will tell you as being an accountant, money talked and the Sixers walked. That's what happened here. And you best believe that the Sixers have.
I guess in this case, didn't walk.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, yeah. So like the Sixers, you best believe that the Sixers probably are the lead, not only are the lead tenants in Wells Fargo, but whatever it winds up being called, the South Philly Battery, you best believe that Josh Harris and the Sixers will be getting the main pie of that when they get their new stadium. And right after that, the new link goes up, whatever it will wind up being called. The new link goes up, and the Sixers and the Eagles have the new shiny building, and then the Phillies are like, "Hey, we need a new Citizens Bank Park." So it all goes together if you really look at it. But moving right along, Philadelphia 76ers, unfortunately, on a 4-game losing streak. They thought valiantly against the Knicks, and lost in overtime. That foul baiter Jalen Brunson kind of got them at the end. But yeah, they're on a 4-game losing streak. Trey, your reaction to this?
I kind of had a brief talk last night about this. We were actually on the phone, catching the end of the game together. And to me, I'm not surprised because your best three, your best players not on the floor. On the other hand, I do believe that Tyrese Maxey, Paul George, and the rest of the crew we have is good enough to win games. Are they the same team? Are they a better team than without Embiid? No, obviously not. We are clearly a better team when Embiid is on the floor. I think Tyrese Maxey and Paul George need to step it up, and for lack of a better term, do better. Right? I think the Sixers need to realize, and this is something that everybody, fans included, have to just come to realize, is that Joel Embiid is going to miss games during the regular season. It's just a fact of the matter. And you can't be in a mindset where, here's how I'll put it. So right now, Joel Embiid is not playing, right? And so just naturally you're in a mindset where you're playing and you're playing to win, and you're playing 110% or whatever the case may be, but you're also thinking, okay, we got to just get through this, right? Until Embiid is back. You can't play like that. Right. In my mind, if I'm Nick Nurse, if I'm Paul George, if I'm Tyrese Maxey, if I'm the rest of the crew, I'm playing with a mindset that Embiid's not coming back. Right. We know that hopefully he gets healthy and he comes back and plays, but you have to play as if he's not. Right. You can't have in the back of your mind that Embiid's off the floor. Oh, and man, I wish Embiid was on the floor. Da, da, da. You can't play with that mindset. And I think right now, over the last 4 games or so, the Sixers are kind of playing like that, where we're playing, even though we played, it's like the Sixers are. It's weird because it's like, obviously we're a better team with Embiid, but we're also a very good team with Embiid off the floor too. We just haven't shown it yet this season, and I think it comes down to mindset. Um, and oh, well, you could say, oh, well, Tyrese Maxey has missed some games. Oh, well, Paul George, yes, Paul George has played 26 games. I think Tyrese Maxey has played probably 28 or 30 games out of our 38, probably maybe more than that. So both Paul George and Tyrese Maxey have played enough games where you should look at the Sixers and say they should be better than their record says. And we are a better team than what our record says. We're 15-23. I am worried, though, long term throughout the course of the season. We're a month away from the All-Star break. The Sixers got to get it together. I think they need to get to 500 or slightly above 500 before the All-Star break, or else I think we're in trouble as far as where this team goes after the All-Star break. And if they have a chance to do anything in the playoffs, I think they have to get it together now, whether Embiid is on the floor or not, and get to a place where they are playing good basketball and winning games consistently up into this All-Star break. And if they don't get there, we're in trouble.
Yeah, I'm on the mindset here that Tyrese Maxey and Paul George, like Trey, need to play better. Paul George, to his credit, has played a lot better since Embiid went down. Or I should, yeah, since Embiid went down with the injury, he's been scoring 20 plus over the last 6 games. Seems like he's really finding his rhythm. And the problem just is, they're not, they're a team constructed that plays way better. We saw it in Detroit, where Joel Embiid plays. And, Caleb Martin hasn't been playing either, which is another defender that they're missing, and another some toughness there. So hopefully he'll play soon. Andre Drummond's down. So it's kind of like your two best role players are also down. Guerschon Yabusele has been great, but it's just bad luck. I said a couple weeks ago that you rather have turmoil early on in the season than later because it brings you together. And so this Sixers season is kind of different because usually the turmoil happens, as Trey knows, either later in the season or right after the season's over. So the fact that this happened already is semi a good thing and a bad thing for the Sixers as well, because like a lot of this kind of happened after the Nets game, which ironically is the last game that they won. So I'm of the mindset that a lot of this is just they need to get healthy, and I'm not just specifically because a lot of people just let Joel Embiid be the target, but Andre Drummond isn't there. Neither is Carl Martin. Neither is Caleb Martin. Neither is Kyle Lowry. I know a lot of y'all don't like Kyle Lowry. And like once Jared McCain went down, it kind of showed that outside of him, there's no backup point guard, so they need to fix that. But some of these issues are just beyond Joel Embiid, right? Like Joel Embiid is great, but a backup point guard, he is not, right? Joel Embiid is great, but he's got to sit down, and Andre Drummond has to be healthy. Guerschon Yabusele is a great player, but he is a power forward, not a center. And maybe they need to play Adam Bona more. But there's at this point, you have what you have. You got a back-to-back coming up, the Midwest back-to-back, Indiana Pacers on Saturday, and the Milwaukee Bucks probably can get that Indiana Pacers game. But the Milwaukee game is probably asking a lot. We're hoping, a lot of people should be an update coming on Joel Embiid in the next few days. So if he can't play on Friday, maybe he'll play on Saturday. I'm sorry, not Saturday. If he can't play, because they're not playing tomorrow. If he can't play on Saturday, maybe he'll play on Sunday. But I feel like it'll get a lot better once if not Joel Embiid doesn't come back until after the All-Star break. Once Andre Drummond and Caleb Martin come back, that'll help them win some more games. I just think at this point you need to get to like the 10th or 9th spot in the East. Now the good thing for the Sixers is outside of the Cavaliers, the Celtics, and the Magic and the Knicks, there's space there to jump up just with a good winning streak to 6th, 7th, or 5th. And if that happens, you feel a little bit better, right? You feel really good because there have been teams like the Knicks did this last year, right, where they were okay to middling right before the All-Star break, and then they picked it up. So the All-Star break will probably be a good thing for the Sixers because they can get healthy. But at this point, you don't even need Joel Embiid to get healthy. You need, and Andre Drummond did some shoot around, so maybe he'll be back sooner rather than later. You need Andre Drummond back, and you need Caleb Martin to not have a tight groin. So that's what you need before you even get to Joel Embiid. And so I think that once they get a lot healthier, the games will be better. But until then, Tyrese Maxey and Paul George need to be dropping at least 80 a night to really help them win. So moving right along, should they just shut Joel Embiid down or continue to stay the course? Now, Trey and I have seen this argument way too much from people on national TV to people in the Sixers fan groups that we're both in to casuals who don't watch the games but are on TNT saying the same thing. I don't think people really realize what they're saying here. Now, I talked to Trey to mention our aforementioned off-air phone call yesterday. This happens a lot. We have a weekly phone call. This is what good friends do. And I am of the mindset, as he knows, that I feel like if you're making this argument, but you're not either literate or knowledgeable enough to know that based on the Al Horford trade, right? That pick, those first round picks, except for in 2028, right, all belong to the Thunder, right? So if the Sixers don't have a top 6 pick, if it's below 6, it goes to the Thunder for these next couple of years. So all you idiots, no disrespect, all you people saying that the Sixers should just take, you should realize, right, that this is not the process days anymore. Because some of y'all casuals, y'all don't watch basketball until right about now, right? There's a lottery, and Trey is in a city where they've sucked for the last few years, and the Hawks only just got the number 1 pick last year, but they've been trash for a good couple of years, and they've been getting the 7, 8, 9, 10. Only just got the number 1 pick this past year. So I want y'all to understand that just because you have a bad record now, it's not guaranteed, because they have Sixers proofed the lottery now, where it's literally a lottery. So there is no guarantee that the Sixers will get a top 6 pick if they shut Joel Embiid down, which is why I think it's stupid. And I've said this before, because right after that comes a lot of y'all who I go to church with, I see every day, who all y'all find some way to say this sentence somehow. Joel Embiid should be traded. So I just want y'all to know, right? The current record right now is 7-18, 7-19 without Joel Embiid, right? And so we know that the Sixers have only played 13 games with Joel Embiid, and they are 7-6, right? Tyrese Maxey, Trey broke it down, missed about 8, 9, 10 games. Paul George has missed 8, 9, 10 games as well, right? But like I said, right? You don't have Joel Embiid, they're a lottery team, right? And just because you're a lottery team doesn't mean that you'll get a top 10 pick, especially if it's not 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6. It automatically goes to the Thunder. I don't know if y'all seen the Thunder lately, but the Thunder are pretty good. and right now they don't have Chet Holmgren. So you're seeing a Thunder team that's a juggernaut, and Chet Holmgren isn't out there on the floor right now. So, do you really want them being able to get an ace ball win or anything, because you idiots want to shut Joel Embiid down and then hope and pray that the pick is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6? Because if it's not that, it's going to the Thunder, right? So I just want y'all to understand what you're saying. To me, they should stay the course. They shouldn't sell anything. You rely on the fact that because we've seen it. If Joel Embiid, Tyrese Maxey, and Paul George on the floor, the worst it looks like for you is that they took one game in Boston, right? And the good thing for the Sixers is they've only played one game against Boston, only played 2 games against Cleveland, had only played 1 game against Milwaukee. I want y'all to understand that it's right there for them, and they don't have to shut Joel Embiid down and take. Now it's looking bad right now, but the Sixers can overcome. Their talent can overcome. Trey?
Yeah. The funny thing to me is about what you were just saying about whether the Sixers should tank or not, is that I actually don't even think we'd be bad enough to even get in the lottery without Joel Embiid. Like, we haven't played well over the last 4 or 5 games, or I should say just 4. But at the same time, I think this team, a healthy team without Embiid, is still a very, it's not. I don't think we're a playoff team per se. I think maybe you could sneak in like as a 9th or 10th seed or something like that, and make it in through the play-in game or something like that. But it's not like this team is top 10 or 15 bad. Like, if anything, they're slightly better than middle of the pack without Embiid. So saying, "Oh, let's sit down Embiid," I think you're both over and underestimating how good the team is with or without Embiid. Like Colin just said, we're better with Embiid, but we were 7-6 with Embiid, right? In 13 games that he played. So it's not like we're so much better with Embiid on the floor that you say, oh, if Embiid's on the floor, we're gonna win the rest of our games. We're gonna go on some like crazy 40-game winning streak or something like that. But on the other hand, without him on the floor, we're still not like straight garbage. So no, you don't sit and beat down for the rest of the season. Continue to stay the course. Um, hopefully he gets in a couple games before the All-Star break and is able to rest over the course of the All-Star break. And can get healthy. Hopefully Caleb Martin and Andre Drummond can get back and be healthy and fill in. And I think if Tyrese Maxey and Paul George can kind of figure things out, and Paul George can kind of continue this how he's been playing the last few games, and Tyrese Maxey, I think, to me, I was in our conversation last night, me and Kylan, I was saying that I think if Tyrese Maxey can figure out a way to stand out, because he's not been playing bad per se, he's just less efficient than you would like. But I think if he can stand out a little bit more on defense, and kind of shore up a little bit the efficiency on offense, this team is a million times better. And Paul George being the veteran on the team, I think he just has to step up and play better. No ifs, ands, or buts. And like I said before, the Sixers have to stop playing. We know at some point Embiid will be back, right? Whether he's 100% or 80%, he'll be back at some point during the season. And the best two players on the team, with not including Embiid and Tyrese Maxey and Paul George, just had to play as if he's not coming back. And play like their life depends on it. Because as I mentioned before, also, if they don't, I do think we're in big trouble, because we're 15-24 now, I think. You really can, you can only spare
16,
about
16,
10 or
4.
16 and 20. What is it? 16 and 24. You can only really spare to lose maybe 10 to 12 more games before you dip into that territory where you're out of the, you're pushing yourself out of playoff contention. And so the Sixers have to, whether Embiid is on the floor or not, just play better. And I think if we do that, this team is, regardless, a playoff team.
I'm glad you said it and not me. But yes. So who is the most to blame for the Sixers' bad start so far this season? I can start here. To me, I think that I'm not even gonna fault all the stuff that people are gonna fault, but I'm gonna fault that I think a lot of this is the Sixers' inability to be able to communicate what's going on with all of these injuries very well, and all the hiding or whatever they're doing, because I don't know everything around these injuries, especially Joel Embiid, specifically Joel Embiid. But I'm gonna start there. Daryl Morey or whoever runs the communication on injury need to be better. They need to hire me to get this communication better, so people have some clarity. I know you don't want to, depress the ticket sales, but also you need to be honest with these people and stop having people speculating on podcasts, people with agendas against the Sixers, and even more now with agendas against the Sixers because of the fact that they now own all of that land around Market East and everything else. But I'll put it there. I'll put it on. I gotta put a lot more blame than should be necessary, just because of the leak that happened in October on Tyrese Maxey. Just because I feel like, and I hate saying it because Trey knows how much I like Tyrese Maxey. I think he is the future of this franchise. He's going to be he is the Scottie Pippen, the Robin. He is that guy. Right, he's the future of the franchise. I hate doing this because I told this to Trey, and I'll say this on air because I'm not scared. I feel like it would have been better if that leak had never come out in October, or whoever leaked it never mentioned the fact that Tyrese Maxey told Joel Embiid that he needs to be on time. No matter what you think about Joel Embiid, right? At that time when that leak happened, Joel Embiid was not playing, so that didn't actually need to be leaked, right? That was only leaked because of the two players who were involved, right? Tyrese Maxey calling out Joel Embiid, and whoever leaked it thought that that would light a fire under the team, right? And all it really did was bring them both closer together, probably, make some little tension there as well. And it kind of really didn't do anything because Joel Embiid wasn't playing. What it did do, though, was put an unnecessary spotlight on Tyrese Maxey because I just said he is a Robin, not a Batman yet. He will be Batman soon, but he's not there yet, right? He's making a lot of money. He'll be with the Sixers for at least the next 5 years. So until he's 26, 27, which is crazy because I think he's 21, 22 now. So he'll be with the Sixers for the next 5 years. And right now, it's all on him because, he's missed about 7 or 8, 9 games now. He's definitely playing too much. I put this on Nick Nurse. Nick Nurse should not be playing him 40 plus minutes because playing him 40 plus minutes, you're Tom Thibodeauing him, putting him in a light that'll make him get injured and stuff like that because your body just can't handle. As a former basketball player, I never made it to Tyrese Maxey's level, but your body can't handle playing 40 plus minutes a night when it's not the playoffs, right? And so you kind of put Tyrese Maxey in a bad spot there because now he has to be Batman until Joel Embiid or until Paul George, whichever one of them, adjusts to the role and start. As Paul George is starting to catch fire now, right? It's starting to work better now. But, I put it on Tyrese Maxey just because he needs to play better. As Trey said, he needs to play better. He shouldn't be playing 40 minutes. It's unfair to him because he didn't leak that. It was a private meeting that then got leaked, but it put an unnecessary spotlight on him because now Joel Embiid isn't playing. So now, like me and everybody else, like I told Trey, everybody's looking at it and saying, well, Joel Embiid's not playing. You called him out for being late, and you over here shooting logo threes late in the shot clock when you at the logo, you got a long runway. You can do what you did last night. Cross somebody up, lay the ball up, dunk the ball, get a foul, right? You're pressing, you're missing people in the corner wide open. People are putting an unnecessary spotlight on Tyrese Maxey because of this leak. And it will probably happen anyway because of the money he makes, but it's unnecessary now, and it's because of that leak. So Tyrese Maxey has to take blame, and then Nick Nurse has to take some blame because that as great as Tyrese Maxey is, he's better off the ball, right? So why is Paul George not handling the ball? Why did it take you midway through the game to put Paul George in a pick and roll, a PNR for those basketball enlightened, a PNR, and that was their best action last night. Trey watched the game too, like pick it PNR. You do that, Paul George gets Jalen Brunson on him. Now, Paul George isn't in his prime like he was, but the one thing he can do is put Jalen Brunson in a blender and either get a foul or get an easy layup or create a three, right? Paul George is just a better playmaker at this point in his career than Tyrese Maxey. Tyrese Maxey will get there. But why, if I can see it, I've been writing about articles that, those of you that watch it know Tyrese Maxey needs to be off ball. He needs to get some time off ball so he can create and score, right? He's better off ball. He's not there yet. Give him the ball. Let Paul George handle it. So then I don't have to see Facebook and tweets about how Paul George is washed when he's really underutilized. So in order, the front office and the people who can't communicate injuries well, can't tell just enough of the truth to not lie, but give people a little kernel to still come to the games. Can't do that. Tyrese Maxey, and unfortunately Tyrese Maxey, and then Nick Nurse. Trey.
Yeah, I'm actually going to put a lot of blame on Paul George. Paul George, for the majority of the season, has played like very bad. He's had some very good games, but he's also had some very bad games, right? Even going back to the Boston game on Christmas, it was like 5 of 15 or 4 of 15 from the floor that game, and had like a stretch of games where he was shooting like under 30% from the floor prior to that. So for me, yes, Tyrese Maxey has some blame because he's, in my opinion, I think he's actually the second best player on the team next to Embiid. But to me, Paul George has to step up, but I do agree that there's some I wouldn't call it underutilization. I think it's misutilization in some cases. Um, Paul George is a player who can really fit in any offense um, because of his play style. Like he can be a defensive guy for you. He can be a guy who can take 20 shots and give you 30 if need be. Um, but I think if we use him right, we're going to see a lot more efficiency from Paul George and a lot more consistency from Paul George. Um, I think we'll see more games like what we've seen from him in the last 3 games, where he's giving you 25. He's shooting a little bit more. He's shooting better from the floor. Um, but I think to go back to, and I'd say maybe 50-50, right? Paul George and Tyrese Maxey. I think, yeah, on the other hand, Tyrese Maxey needs to learn how to play better in the flow of the game, right? You mentioned Kylan. There was a couple times where he's pulling up, essentially shooting logo threes, and it's kind of like it's not a good shot, right? We can get a better shot than that. And I think as a result of Tyrese Maxey trying to do so much because he's playing 40, I think last night he played like something like 45, 46 minutes, including overtime. He's forcing the issue, and I think once Tyrese Maxey fully gets to the point where he knows how to play in the flow of the game and take what the defense gives him instead of trying to, what they gave me was they're pressing me from half court, so what they gave me was a half court three. No, that's not how that works, right? Part of getting better in the flow of the game for him is going to be being a better facilitator. I think, to me, there's in addition to what I mentioned before about him becoming a better defender, I think the big thing for Tyrese Maxey, and this goes for all point guards, is that Tyrese Maxey has to get better at just being a floor general and running the offense. I said that from the jump when we saw that he was going to be the player that he is, and the promise he had as a player. I was like, he has to be able to run the offense and play better in the flow of the game. As much as I love him as a player, that's his biggest flaw, and it's a big flaw to have when you're trying to be a championship contender team and you're missing your best player, who's arguably the best player in the league, right? So I'd say probably about 50% Paul George because of how poorly he's played at times, and 50% blame on Tyrese Maxey because although he hasn't played horrendously, there's been some moments where he's done some boneheaded things and made some, errant plays that you expect from, one first year, second year player. But at this point, Tyrese Maxey's been in the league 4 years, 5 years now. Like, you expect him to just be better when it comes to playing in the flow of the game and just being a higher IQ, smarter player when he's on the floor.
Hey man, I agree. So this is breaking news, Trey. Before we get to this topic, but they're saying Joe Biden's not going to enforce TikTok ban, so he's going to leave that to our
Is
incoming.
that the case? Because I saw some reports, earlier this
Well,
week that said that was the case, and then I saw some
it,
reports that they were nigging on
it
that.
just it just dropped from the AP, so he's not going to enforce.
Okay.
He's going to leave that to Trump. So TikTok, it seems like for those of you that watch the show and are on TikTok, seems like you got until Monday, I guess, before before it changes. So you get a little bit more time. So it won't be a funeral too much of it'll be a funeral, but not for that on Monday, I guess. So are we heading for an Oklahoma City Thunder and Cleveland Cavaliers finals matchup? Now, I think this game is going on right now. Or I believe. Trey will check me on that, but I believe it's going on right now or is about to happen. So yeah, these are the two best teams right now in both conferences. Oklahoma City Thunder and Cleveland Cavaliers.
It is going on currently. The Thunder are currently up 99-63 in the third quarter.
So the Cavaliers and the Thunder are the two best teams in each conference right now. So are we heading for that matchup, Trey? I mean, you want you can start here.
I possibly. I mean, the Cavs are the Cavs and the Thunder are clearly the best two teams in the league, um, record wise, and I think just by the way they played on the floor. Um, I don't know. I think I'm sticking to my guns when I say that I think the Thunder are a team that's going to be play really well in the regular season, and at the end of the day, they're gonna I would say flop, but they're just not gonna hit the mark in the playoffs. I think they're as good as SGA is. I just I think they're at that point where they're they're not quite there yet to be the favorite to be in the finals. I think there are more experienced teams that maybe aren't the better team per se overall than the Thunder that have a better chance. And then on the side with the Cavs, they're a good team. Just I have I just don't see them as a they're a contender. I just don't see them um, getting past Boston or the Knicks um, to make it there. I think if anything, if it's not, if the Sixers can't figure things out, it's either Boston or New York. That's your favorite to go to the finals. Uh, and in the West, I could see a scenario where the Thunder make it, but I think it's harkening back to that Thunder team that made it. And actually, if you don't if for those who don't remember, actually that Thunder versus Heat matchup back in 2012, the Thunder actually won Game 1 of that series, and then went on to lose the next four. But I think if anything, if the Thunder get to the finals, I think they're going to go up against a more experienced, either Celtics team or a team in the Knicks who just have great at this point have they're working out their chemistry and I don't know I see that as a more likely finals matchup, probably like Boston and maybe the Nuggets go back. I don't know. I just don't see the Thunder making it there.
Yeah, I'm gonna disagree here. I think the Thunder are the team to beat. They're going to the finals. I think they got last year because they didn't have difference makers on the perimeter, and they kind of solved that with Alex Caruso. That's Alex Caruso's whole job is to shut down the opposing guard of the team. You kind of saw that, with Tyrese Maxey when they faced the Thunder just a couple of days ago, right? Like Tyrese Maxey still cooked them, but he did his job, right? And so I feel like the Thunder, because they're a juggernaut right now, and Chet Holmgren isn't on the floor right now. Like Chet Holmgren is one of the best defensive big men, not named Joel Embiid or Victor Wembanyama, right? Like he's kind of the forgotten man because he's not playing right now, so people forget that Chet Holmgren is that dude, right? Um, I'm of the mindset that if Chet Holmgren's there along with Isaiah Hartenstein, who we haven't mentioned, but like the Knicks don't really have a big man. Cat is not that guy. And I don't say that because like I love Karl Anthony Towns, but he's not the paint presence. He's not that guy. He's a good defender, but he's not that guy, right? And Chet Holmgren is that guy, right? Victor Wembanyama is that guy. I'm of the mindset that if Chet Holmgren is back and healthy, along with, because I think their best starting lineup is Caruso, Lou Dort, Jalen Williams, obviously Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Chet Holmgren at the forward position, and Isaiah Hartenstein. Because as the Sixers found out, Isaiah Hartenstein, besides the fact that he's like 2 or 3% black, is really good at his job, which is rebound the ball and shoot them floaters and pass that ball. And then he and the Knicks clearly miss him, right? So I'm of the mindset that the Thunder have enough difference makers and role playing difference makers to make it to the finals. And I think I can see them definitely beating the Celtics. I don't know if they could beat a fully healthy Sixers team if they see them in the finals, but I kind of think that the Knicks are good, but I think we saw against the severely undermanned Sixers team that they have a bunch of J.R. Smiths on their team who can shoot. Like when Deuce McBride, no disrespect to him, is your best consistent 3-point shooter. Like you kind of probably need Dante DiVincenzo back before I'm like, oh yeah, the Knicks are going to make it to the finals. They don't really have a consistent shooter. They have a bunch of J.R. Smiths on their team. And that's no disrespect to Mikal Bridges. But again, when Mikal Bridges and Deuce McBride are your two best shooters, you got a problem. I'm of the mindset that, like we saw last night, like when the Knicks are hitting their threes, they're a really good team. And when it doesn't work, they go into overtime against teams they should have beat in regulation. I honestly think the Cavaliers are a really good team. Kenny Atkinson might be their Steve Kerr. I'm not saying that he's going to get them to its finals, but it kind of feels like he's the kind of coach that they needed. The Cavaliers look really good right now. Donovan Mitchell stayed there. And I was very surprised. I thought he would end up in New York. So I'm of the mindset that the Cavaliers are a really good team, but I just think that they don't have something always happens with the Cavaliers when they get good. So we'll see. But I can see the Cavaliers in the finals. A lot might need to go right. Like the Celtics might get injured again. The Knicks might have some injuries too, and the Sixers might just stay a mess. But if all of that happens, I can see the Cavaliers make it into the finals. But the Thunder, I think, are the more likely to represent and win a championship this year because I think that they are that good, and I don't see any outside of not having Chet Holmgren. There are not many holes on this team on the Thunder team.
I disagree with you on the fact that about whether the Thunder will make it to the finals, but I agree with you on the fact that clearly the Thunder have the much better chance of making it to the finals. And also, for those who, if you're not paying attention, it's 2:14 left in the third. The Thunder are actually mollywopping the Cavs 115-75.
Yeah, so Cavs probably didn't play people. That's probably why they.
Maybe, perhaps. I can check out and look at the box score real quick. Let's see.
But yeah, while he checks that out, we've entered the final portion of this show. It's shout outs time.
No, Donovan Mitchell's playing, Darius Garland's playing, Jared Allen, Evan Mobley, everybody's playing.
They must not be shooting well then.
Donovan Mitchell's 3 for 15.
Yep, that'll do it. So for the shout out segment, shouts out to all the people, especially in Trey's portion of the media and entertainment industry, pulling up for these people, man. Sony donating money, Beyonce donating money, Halle Berry donating her whole wardrobe out of her closet to these people who need a lot. So shouts out to everybody, who's been stepping up for the suburban LA community. Just to be clear here, because a lot of people have said Los Angeles, and it's not the city burning; it's the suburbs of LA, which are not represented by Karen Bass. We don't need to get into the politics of that, but so shouts out to all of those people stepping up, and again, shouts out to the fact that the weather it seems cleared up, and it seems like we're a lot more clear about what's going on this week than we were last week, so that's a good thing. Shouts out to all the people stepping up for LA, for the LA suburb, for the greater LA community. Trey?
So shout out to the city of Atlanta. I wasn't freaking out about the snow. For those who don't know, yes, it snowed in Atlanta for the first time. I think it snowed maybe 2022, I think ish. Like a little bit, didn't stick at all, really. Stuck to kind of the grass, but didn't stick to the roads at all. There wasn't really any ice, but this is the first time it snowed significantly since snow began in 2014. And as someone who's from the north, it just it's like 4 or 5 inches of snow was expected. I think approximately, at least. Initially, it was like something like 17 inches or something like that, some astronomical number. But I expected the roads to be horrendous. I didn't really expect. I knew I could handle it and drive it if I needed to, but I expected the roads to be pretty bad, and I actually ended up having to drive over the weekend to get the set. And the roads were actually very clear. Like They had salted the roads very well. The worst part of the road that I experienced was my apartment complex. So if I were to throw in a they that they aren't them, it would be my apartment complex for not salting the apartment complex parking lot. But yeah, so shout out to them. They clearly learned their lesson from 2014. They took it seriously. They salted the roads, shoveled, or not shoveled, but got those plow trucks and plowed the snow out of the way and made the roads clear and relatively safe. I didn't really see any ice out on the roads except for maybe some bad spots on some back country roads. But yeah, so shout out to the city of Atlanta and Mayor Dickens.
And it helped that no one went to school on Monday, right?
Well, there's that as well, right? So nobody was even really on the road, but for those that were, it was clear.
All right. So yeah, we're ready. He's not him, she's not her, and they aren't them. The second, I think, of the new year, it might be the third of the new year. So my they aren't them. Unfortunately, I have to do this. My they aren't them just because it is happening and I don't like it. But my they aren't them to the city of Philadelphia. I'm gonna combo this. The city of Philadelphia, and just Chinatown community as well. I am of the mindset. I'll be completely transparent. I was pro arena, and I'm of the mindset that, as I said earlier, if there was L's that had to be had here, it was the city, specifically city council, and the activist community. Just because I feel like, right, that it's unfortunate that whenever money gets thrown around, obviously there's after effects, there's gentrification, there's this, there's that. But I'm of the mindset here that something had, and I said this when they came and they were door knocking, and they came to my community, like something has to go there, right? Something has to be there, right? There has to be something to maintain downtown, right? Center City is a great community filled with a bunch of young adults, 25 and ups, who need something to do besides go to the Reading Terminal and go to the tattoo show or what's going on now, the auto show. Like they need something down there. There needs to be something there than just an ice skating rink at City Hall. And if you want to go on the subway or take the regional rail, go to Penn's Landing or club or something, right? There needs to be something, right? Like if you look at the downtown community, it's been nothing but L's for Center City, right? Macy's shutting down, the arena not coming, right? University of the Arts gone, right? Like it's just been nothing but L's for the downtown Center City community. And so to have city council trying to export the Sixers, right? Activists basically who are saying no to billionaires, but also only want to talk about the parking lots and other stuff that would not work at a mall location, right? Y'all want parking lots right next to a hospital. Like what? Like I'm just of the mindset that if there's L's that need to be held here, like it's a bunch of people, right? Like there's a lot of optics here in the media field. As Trey knows, optics is everything. So a lot of people are doing victory laps. But at the end of the day, the reality is that Macy's isn't there. University of the Arts is closed. The Center City Arena or whatever the Sixers put on there, more than likely it'll either be a practice facility for the WNBA team, a team store, or a Comcast Tower 3. Like whatever goes up there will not, like, it'll be financially beneficial, but it won't bring the finances, the money, the housing, everything that Center City needs that an arena would have been. And it's unfortunate that, so much of this is getting lost in that, right? That, like it came out during this time, Chinatown is going to get gentrified. There's nothing that's going to happen. That's just what's going to happen because living in the city is so cheap. The colleges continue to expand. Everything is just leading that way that eventually, like all the really cheap places, especially in Center City, as Trey knows, pretty cheap to live down there. So it's not going to, it's going to eventually wind up in looking just like South Philly looks now, younger, less Italian, and a lot more diverse, and that's what Chinatown's going to end up looking like too. Like it is a crazy time to be in the city, but my day anthem has to go to city council, like just people who they are passionate, but it's just a funny thing when in reality, right, your passion is to protect the community, but at the same time, the larger community around it is suffering because of your passion, right? Macy's is gone. Like just think about this, right? Macy's is gone. That's a couple of days later. No arena in downtown Center City, so the gallery is going to close. The Sixers will still own it. They'll bulldoze it for something else. Um, a mixed use facility, right? So Macy's is gone. University of the Arts is gone. Who knows what else will close before anything opens? With that the Sixers in the area the Sixers own right now. The only thing thriving down there is the convention center, everything around the convention center, and the Reading terminal. So like that's my day on them to the city of Philadelphia because it just at this point we just have to admit that there needs to be something down there. Now it can be something like I said, way less destructive to a community, if you want to say that, than an arena, but something has to go down there that financially benefits the downtown area, right? Because Trey and I as natives, we know where to go, but I don't have a small business or a business that's dependent on downtown traffic like a lot of people do down there. So downtown, especially Market East, has to have something. So and it's an L that it continues to be lost. That is the reality that Center City continues to lose based on what happened this week. Trey.
Yeah, I kind of already gave away my they aren't them my apartment complex for not for not salting the parking lot. Um, I had to clear. I cleared my. I had I had to go to set Saturday morning, so I had to go outside and clear my car Friday night, and I was like, "Why is there so much snow on the ground?" And then I drove out of my apartment complex, and the road was clear. So I'm calling out um, Legacy at Druid Hills. They're never gonna see this, so um, but yeah, that was really annoying. And then my he's not him is actually twofold, um, and fairly serious. So for those who don't know, who Neil Gaiman, I believe I'm pronouncing his name right. Previously had been accused of some sexual assault allegations. I believe from two women, and he recently came out about I think it was maybe earlier today or maybe it was yesterday, denying these allegations, but also saying that he essentially made some mistakes and he could have done better. So it was kind of like a half denial, and it was a very weird response. Um, and so it's just a weird thing. For those who don't know who Neil Gaiman is, he's written books like The Good Omen. He wrote Lord have mercy, I'm blinking. Coraline. And I think he also was the showrunner, or at least was responsible for the TV adaptation of The Sandman. So he wrote the book for The
Yeah,
Sandman
he
as
wrote,
well.
he wrote, he wrote the
Um,
Sandman.
so it's just bad situation all around. Whether the allegations are true or not, I don't actually know. You know, but it doesn't sound good when you come out and deny allegations, but also kind of say, I could have done better during that time. And it makes you look like a bad guy. And then also, in addition to Neil Gaiman, unfortunately, um, there were some sexual assault allegations against my favorite team in college basketball, rather, the Florida Gators. One of their assistant men's basketball coaches were also some allegations have been brought up against him, which just all around is bad. They had some Title IX stuff from I think last year or 2 years ago that they're still dealing with. Um, so I don't know what's going on, but men, y'all need to get it together. You know, we had people stalking Paige Beckers and Caitlin Clark, people getting accused of sexual assault allegations all over the place, and this we won't even go, the other route. Where, we know who else has got a whole case against him, but yeah, do better, man. Like it's unacceptable. Like don't don't do these things. I don't care if it's a woman or a man, whatever. Like don't get caught in these situations. Don't do bad things to people, right? Just be a better human being. And we won't have these situations where somebody's claiming somebody sexually assaulted them or worse. And now somebody's coming out and denying it. And now you just look like a piece of crap, whether you did it or not. So those are my two he's not him for today. So yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I echo that. Men do better. Yeah, well, everybody do better. It's 2025. Do better. But yeah, so that wraps up episode 58. Thank you all for listening and tuning in. Like we said, Trey has some movies and a film and some short films that definitely check out on his Mr. Taylor Films on YouTube.
Mr. Taylor Movies, yep.
That's the Taylor Movies, my bad. Mr. Taylor 3 on Instagram. Morgan is at M_Indy_Miller. I am at Colin W. Watson on X/Twitter. If y'all simply, a lot of y'all have reached out on the gram as well. So definitely look me or search me up if you want to find me as well. And as a one-stop shop that you can find me, find Trey, find Morgan as well. So y'all have a great weekend. Enjoy your MLK Day weekend. Check out these games, basketball games, college basketball games, women's college basketball games. TikTok, it seems like national championship game on Monday. TikTok, it seems like, has been saved at least until the next administration. So good on all you TikTok content creators. You get at least a weekend to enjoy TikTok. We will see you soon. Definitely keep up on the socials. Deuces, y'all. Have a great weekend. Thanks, Trey, for showing up as well. Standing in the gap for Morgan. Probably be a lot more of this because, like we said, send prayers, send positive thoughts. Morgan, like I said, is she put this on social media, so she won't mind me sharing this. 10 weeks away from a new addition coming her way and dealing with the last half of her pregnancy. So send some prayers, some thoughts to her, Dan, and the dogs. All right, y'all. Deuces.